Hideous Energy, episode 156.
Back and on the regular day, unless you listen to us on a different day than we put the show up.
This comes out on Wednesday, November 13th, 2013.
11.
Yesterday was 11, 12, 13.
13,
People wouldn't
13.
shut up about it.
Really? No one said a fucking word to me at my place of employment.
I meant on Twitter.
Oh.
I meant real people.
Oh.
Not the
What?
flesh machines that I have to talk to
yeah.
in the real life.
Yeah, the aliens disguised as humans.
I mean the good things. The good things I like to talk to.
Twitter?
Nah, Twitter's kind of just a sludge pile, too.
I'm going to say it's a giant fucking rage machine.
All I do is hate. End sentence.
I was going to say, period.
My name's David.
I'm Austin.
We are co-hosts of Hideous Energy, a comic book podcast where we talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
You can find us online on iTunes. Subscribe to us there, and you'll get this stupidity delivered to you on a weekly basis.
Correct.
If we have interviews, then it will be bi-weekly.
Yep.
You can also find us on the internet, the non-iTunes portion.
Correct.
At hideousenergy.com. That'll take you to fanoff.com/hideousenergy. That's our page with Fanoff, who is our host. They host our podcast and a bunch of other podcasts. So check those out. Check us out. You can look at a back catalog of episodes back to a certain point. It's like episode 46. I completely arbitrarily picked that number. I have no idea.
It's not that far back, but
you know?
I think it's in the 80s maybe.
Just a guess, right?
That's a better guess than yours.
Well, how's it a better guess if it's still a guess?
Because I didn't arbitrarily pick a number like you did.
Did those cats just open up the door that hard?
They did, yeah. They kicked the door open with their fighty.
They didn't kick it open that hard.
I'm going to hit them with the door.
There's a ghost in this house.
No, because I know that
this is boring. I don't care.
Listen, fucker.
No.
I think the first episode on Fanoff
You can
is
also
our
call
interview
us-
with Emmy Lennox.
You can also call us at 1720-HIDEOUS, HIDEOUS. If you look at your phone, there's letters on the buttons.
That's true.
It's been that way since, I don't know, the 70s maybe?
Nixon.
Oh, the 60s.
I meant to say Edison.
Very different
Two
people.
different people. Pretty different people.
If you call that number, you will not be able to talk to us, at least in a way where we're going to hear you and respond. But
You'll hear David's dumb voice.
Is there a voice there? When you call that number?
Yeah, fucking asshole. That's meaner than I meant to be.
Way too mean.
I think you leave
I've never recorded voicemail. Maybe it says Hideous Energy.
Are your cats building shit behind me? It sounds like they have tools.
We sent them to cat college, and they're eager to apply their newfound knowledge. You can leave a voicemail, which we will then play on the show, answer any questions or comments you may have brought to the table.
80% likely make fun of you.
And make fun of you. Do that. Also, email us at hideousenergy
email us.
at gmail.com.
Please, look, last week, which, yes, technically the episode went up later than normal, so maybe everyone who listens ordinarily didn't hear us. We even talked about putting out CDs and USB drives with shows on them, specifically shows that are harder to find online, and brand new content that you can't find anywhere, and so are specific to the CDs and the USB drives. And none of you assholes emailed us.
No.
None of you nice people emailed us.
There we go.
You didn't email us, you didn't tweet at us, you didn't post on Facebook about it.
I also thought about this and haven't brought it up to you off air, so this is going to be interesting.
It's just like last week, yeah.
It's actually not really going to be that controversial at all.
Oh, great.
I'm going to do the show by myself from now on. How do you feel about that?
Oh, you know what? Relieved.
What I was thinking was, I know we have a lot of listeners out there that have different
Millions of
interests.
numbers.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people, but we don't know the actual number. We just kind of make it up.
Yeah.
But there's got to be one of you guys out there that can make music of some type, like our creative music person.
Or is that you? Are you listening now?
And I was thinking that it would be cool if we updated some of our
music,
like our tags, our bumpers for our segments
with listener-generated music.
Yeah, like some type of thing, or maybe it's just a little musical cue, and then we add Emery's voice in, or maybe it's just completely original.
I think that is a terrible idea.
That's mean. But if people did that and sent them in, we could then, if there was more than one person, it'll probably be like last time we were like, we want to do a webcomic, and one person answered.
And that was the person we chose. Not saying that you were bad, Brent, but, you know.
But if
it was just happenstance.
If that is a thing that you're into,
do you make music? That would be awesome.
We could play it on the show. We could say, hey, this person sent this in.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
What's going to happen now, though, is that no one is going to send it in, and
Yeah.
we're going to be embarrassed.
Yeah. No. We're going to lie. We're wading through the entrance. A lot of people, a lot of music to listen to. We're going to get back to you, and then we're going to, like, our sentence will end, or we'll forget about it, or...
Shout out to Germ Nizzle.
Yeah.
He tweeted at me, and I forgot to tweet him back, and I just remembered right now. So rather than tweet at him, he brought up on Twitter an episode, or he recommended an episode of Fat Man on Batman, which is a Kevin Smith Batman podcast that we talk about, not like regularly. It's not a weekly thing, but we've talked about it multiple times on the show. We're fans of that show.
Yeah.
And I encourage all you guys to listen to it. He recommended it on Twitter. I listened to it. I liked it a lot. Kevin Smith has Paul Dini on, and they have kind of just a potpourri of different topics to discuss. And then they hit on one topic that goes off in a pretty interesting direction. And I don't want to spoil it more than that, but it's totally worth listening to. So it's called Shadow of the Bat is the name of the podcast.
Did you see that tweet?
The episode, I guess, rather.
I think it was Rave Dauberts sent to us. Maybe I think it was Rave Dauberts.
Oh, the 616 thing?
Didn't that blow your fucking mind?
I mean, no, but I thought it was interesting.
Never fucking mind, I guess.
It didn't blow my mind.
Why don't you do this show by yourself? This is awful.
I would like to, man. It would be so much better.
I think it's fake. It looks photoshopped. It doesn't. But I'm not convinced it's real yet because I didn't see it on the screen.
Well, to me, it's just like a...
Well, yeah, it's not that.
Well, it's weird because like Marvel has set. Okay, we have to explain what it is. In Thor 2,
that's true. Yeah,
there's a screenshot someone has online that Rave Daubert sent to us, but it's a screenshot of Eric Selvig at the chalkboard writing a bunch of crazy stuff because he's nuts.
Isn't it a dry erase board or something?
I don't know. It's a dry erase board or a chalkboard.
Doesn't matter.
And he writes
denim.
616 universe is one of the.
It's not denim, Emery.
Is one of the things on the board, along with a million other things.
It's like the Yggdrasil. He draws Yggdrasil, basically, what we know to be Yggdrasil at that point, and then to the left it says
there's a lot of words,
616 universe. Too. Yeah. It's not just
a tree and then a phrase.
No, but
we would have noticed that.
We would have, yeah, but the only reason that I thought it was cool is because if that's on the board, then that potentially means within the Marvel film universe, the other universes exist.
I mean, we know that, though, and Thor 2, they have all the different universes. That's not a concept that's...
Well, those aren't universes, though. Those are worlds.
Realms, yeah.
Like,
but they're not planet. I mean, they are different planets, but they're not...
yeah, but they never specifically say, like, are they...
I'm just saying the idea
universe?
Of, like, different...
Well, yeah, the only reason I fucking care is because Miles.
Oh, yeah. I honestly think it's just an Easter egg.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
I mean, like,
I'm sure it's not as important as I want it to be.
Well, that's why it doesn't blow my mind as much, because the stuff that they did in the earlier movies where they would have...
little Easter eggs.
Well, like, there's an Easter egg in the Incredible Hulk movie where Emil Blonsky has a later version of the super soldier serum that he talks about how they tested in World War II.
Yeah.
Something like that is an Easter egg, but at the same time, it was also setting up stuff, and we knew that. So we were totally like, holy crap, that's Captain America's serum.
So this could
they're going to make a Captain America movie.
Be setting something up.
I mean, maybe, but it's so minor, and like someone had to screen grab it, that I think it's just kind of an Easter egg. Like, that's why I wasn't as like, holy crap.
You are the most
even
negative person I've ever met in my life.
Even if they're setting up something, what would they set up? Because it's not the 616 universe. The Marvel universe isn't. They already have a number for it. It's a different universe.
In the films?
Yeah, the film universe, the cinematic universe is what they call it.
It's not. What do you mean?
It's
like
not,
they reference it in the comics as another number?
Marvel has assigned it something. It's its own separate thing.
Where did they do that?
On some dorky handbook to the Marvel Universe thing.
You're calling it dorky and you know it exists.
I haven't read it. I just know that. Like, just like DC has different worlds. Like, they have the Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns stuff is its own world. And Watchmen is its own world.
Elseworlds.
I mean, kind of. I think Elseworlds might be its own world.
No, Elseworlds, I think, was a...
Do each one of them have their own planet?
Yeah. Well,
really?
I don't know. It's a giant.
That's like 47 planets by itself.
Imagine a mess, then piss and shit on that mess. And that's how messy it is now.
You are now Dan DiDio.
That's correct. Take your mess and then shit on it. And then get some dirt on it. Now you're there. That's DC.
Discount Comic Book Service sells DC Comics, and they also sponsor our show. So check out dcbservice.com. They are the biggest online retailer for comic books, trades, statues, toys, whatever.
Paraphernalia.
They don't sell drug accessories.
No. Paraphernalia is a word that is associated with other things other than just drugs.
It's not like sort of say cocaine machine. I don't even know what that would be.
It is not a cocaine
it
machine.
It makes cocaine, or it helps you do it.
Helps you. Those
it's
are
a
dollar
little gun.
bills.
It just shoots it in your nose. It's really awful, uncomfortable. It's like real fast.
Shoot this coke into my nose with this gun. Just do it.
It's way. People just die immediately. Like it's way overpowered.
How'd Jack die? I blew his brains out with some cocaine.
I thought you were going to say, how jacked am I? So you went, how Jack die?
How Jack die, man? I jacked. That's about how the show goes.
We have a promo code that you can use if you've never used it at Discount Comic Book Service. It is Hideous8, HIDEOUS, and the number 8.
Yeah.
It only works once, though, so if you've tried it once, it's going to block you. They're going to see your number. They're going to be able to see your social security number, naked pictures of you.
Yeah. If you tried it once, it worked that one time. If you tried it twice, it doesn't work.
Fool me once, shame on them. Fool me twice.
Correct. Fool me twice.
Captain America.
And you have to go to the cow for the milk. Right.
DCB you had more.
DCBservice.com.
We're forgetting something.
Are we?
I think so.
The reason the 8% is so good on their website is because you already get 40% off of your entire order.
Yeah.
You heard me right. That's 48% when you add the
Total.
8 to the 40.
If you're in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area, you can stop by their store. It's like an hour away from where we live, hour and a half, so we go there. Honestly, really more often than we should. It's probably an overall loss, like you mentioned last week.
Oh, it is 100% overall loss.
In terms of gas.
We're spending more money than we should, but it's such a magical place. It's so fucking great. Before we end the intro, David lettered Johnny Hero Volume 2, The Skills to Pay the Bills, which is out now by Tor Books.
Yes.
Written and illustrated by Fred Chow, one of the show's favorite current cartoonists, so make sure you check that out. I have a short story up on punchnals.com. If you search for my name or Thin Man Little Bird, you can find that. David lettered Ribbon C and Six Barrel Shotgun. Ribbon C is up on readchallenger.com, Ryan Ferrier's website. Six Barrel Shotgun is on Gumroad, but also on Comixology. You can search for my name, David's name, or Logan Farber, who illustrated Six Barrel Shotgun. Ribbon C was illustrated by Lowell Isaac. That's the kind of shit we are into, if that's not weird enough.
Oh, I do a weekly webcomic with Amy Gaskin called Razor Bloom.
Yeah, you do.
So check that out at razorbloom.com.
Also, remember that weekly webcomic we did for a year and a half, 2 years maybe?
Yeah, about almost 2 years, I think.
It's called Super Cute. Drew by Brent Hibbert, illustrated by Brent Hibbert, who we mentioned earlier. Brent is currently working on the next phase of Super Cute, in conjunction with colorist Daniel Sanchez, also an artist.
Yeah.
David's going to letter it. I'm going to sit back and watch it all take shape in front of me.
Well, we already wrote it, so.
We did. We actually still need to finish quite a bit of it.
Probably.
No, there's not a probably about it. It's a fact.
Well, I mean, we could just, for the end of it, let's make it very
arty,
very experimental. Yeah,
oh,
we can just be like, for the end, like Liberty.
Yeah.
And then just have him draw it.
Draw the idea of liberty.
Yeah, but with Brent, it would be so mad. It would just be like...
It'd be a dinosaur.
American eagles, like bald eagles riding dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Which doesn't... Well, you would think it would be the other way around.
Bald eagles riding dinosaurs?
Yeah.
I want to see dinosaurs riding bald eagles.
Well, I know that's the obvious choice, which is why I think Brent would make...
It's obvious to want to see dinosaurs riding bald eagles?
I think between the two, that you would ride the one that can fly, because it would...
Do you know how big dinosaurs are?
Well... I don't think he's going to draw a normal-sized bald eagle.
I want to see
a
Tyrannosaurus Rex riding a
and
bald
who says
eagle.
It can't be? It could be like a Prehysteria dinosaur. It could be a little baby T-Rex riding a regular-sized bald eagle.
I want to tell you...
This is why this is a great idea, is because there's so many
possibilities.
options.
Brent, if you're listening... Make this shit happen.
Don't actually, because you still are working on stuff. We need you to finish. Finish the stuff you're doing
Draw
first.
the things you need to finish for Super Cute first.
Then draw the little
Or maybe
T-Rexes.
as a warm-up. Like, you have to warm up. You can't just be like, and I'm drawing now. I've tried it, and it turns out awful.
You can't, in case you haven't been able to notice or catch on, because we're very good at this, you can't do that with podcasts either. Basically, all our podcasts are a warm-up.
Yeah.
We get all the garbage out, and then we post it and go play board games.
Correct.
So
I can't wait to play Dominion tonight.
There's no follow-up.
Yeah.
Read 'em and weep.
Every week we read comics, tell you about them, and then we cry. Whether that's on or off air, you'll know.
Yeah, you'll be able to hear it.
You will find out. Welcome to Read 'em and Weep.
Yeah.
Today we've got 2 books up. Both of them come out today, November the 13th, 2013, by Image Comics.
Spoilers with 2 Z's.
We're gonna spoil
Put them wherever you want.
with the Z these comic books. First up is Umbral.
Umbral.
Number 1, written by Antony Johnston and illustrated by Christopher Mitten.
What's the other creative
The letters are by Thomas Maurer, who I've been following that dude for a while. He's good. I like him.
Really? Because I've got some problems with this issue as far as the lettering goes.
No, I don't mean him or this issue. I didn't mean him when I said I like him.
I'm confused.
I meant
his work
Richard
overall.
Starkins. And it's colored by John Rauch.
It says he painted it, but I think
it's them being clever because the letterer is the flourisher.
Yeah,
and
but
the illustrator is the illuminator, and the writer is the scribe.
I mean, illuminator could also be colorist to me, but
When I hear illuminator, I think of
lighting,
not light, but like the Book of Kells.
magicians.
What do you think the Book of Kells is?
Is it
A spell book? Did you
is
just
it-
try to kill my cat? You suplex him on the ground. He's not even fully grown.
Emery frowning and almost crying. I tried to be nice.
The Book of Kells has like illuminated pages, where it's that type of art.
What kind of fucking sorcery are you talking about?
Do you know what the Book of Kells is?
No.
Okay.
Isn't it a cartoon?
It is kind of. I think that's called The Secret of the Kells or something like that.
That's all I was
But it's
thinking
about
of.
the Book of Kells.
Oh.
The Book of Kells was this.
I just bit back what I was about to say.
It was this big illuminated.
I'm going to have to tell you off air.
It was this big like illuminated, illustrated book by monks.
Oh.
That they like.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah. It's historical. Like they laboriously. It's beautiful. Like it's. I don't know if it's the Bible with illustrations in it, or I'll show you pictures of it later.
Okay.
But there's a book. The guy who wrote that Robin Hood trilogy, like Hood,
Stephen
Tuck,
Lawhead.
Stephen Lawhead. He wrote a book called Byzantium, which is really good. It's just a novel.
I
It's
still
not a
need to
series.
read Hood. I only have that one of the series.
That's the only one I've read. My dad liked all 3 of them.
I'm excited to read it.
But that Byzantium book is about one of the monks who worked in the Book of Kells, and then it's about them taking this book to Byzantium.
Huh.
That's good. All right, that's not what this is
Umbral.
about. This is the same team who did Wasteland, which is a comic book put out by Oni, which is like a post-apocalyptic. The cover of it has a guy with goggles on.
Yeah. Haven't you bought it?
I've
or
almost bought
it
like 7 times.
We've gone to DCBS 19,000 times, and David's almost bought it 18,990 times.
Yeah. All right, so this book is set in a fantasy. Straight up fantasy, right? Would you combine it with anything else in terms of its aesthetic? This first page makes it look like it's fantasy steampunk, but the rest of it doesn't really feel like that.
No, the first page and some other stuff has slight sci-fi feel. It's almost strictly just straight up fantasy, but
There is industry to it.
Yeah.
Like I think there are machines in the story, but it doesn't seem like it seems very fantasy. I mean, you can tell, like, even from the beginning, there's a map of the kingdom, and it seems very
fantastical.
Tolkien-esque.
I was going to say it's a kind of a combination between some Tolkien stuff, which is hard to get away from if you're going to do a fantasy story.
That dickhead ruined it for so many people, so
did.
many fantasy writers.
He did, yeah. Actually,
He's a real chode.
He made it easy for them to copy him.
He made it easy for people to be hacks, yes.
Which I don't think this does, by the way. Although there are...
What, copies Tolkien?
It doesn't copy Tolkien, and it's not hackish, because that's what it
We
made.
accidentally got into a very, not dangerous, but setting where it sounded like we were setting up that we were going to trash this book and call them hacks, but that's not what it was.
That's why I wanted to make it very clear that that's not what we're doing. No, it's a fantasy book.
Yeah.
And I think the problems that I had with this book are only rooted in that it's a first issue.
Okay.
So it's not from a writing standpoint, because I think the writing is strong. I connected with the characters. I did find things out about the world that made me curious to read more issues.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that stuff, as far as developing a setting and drawing readers in with characterization and story arcs, some of it's going to be impossible to do because it's a first issue.
Yeah.
And this is obviously a large story that they want to tell, or at least it seems like it is. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of stuff that they can't do just because they're constrained to the amount of pages that they are in a monthly comic.
Right.
But as far as writing, art, colors. The letters for almost 90% of the book, that stuff is all really good.
What didn't you like of the lettering?
When the demons show up,
The shadow monsters.
the shadow monsters. Is it the kerning, the space between the letters?
Yeah, it's pretty close. I didn't
Too
notice
close
it though.
in a couple of places.
I actually really like their word balloons.
The word balloons are sweet.
I sat down and was like, I'm going to copy this. Totally rip it off. I seriously looked at it and was like, how did he do this? Because I'm going to do it too because I really like it.
Well, it looks they look all different actually. Like
No, they do. That's what pisses me off about Thomas Maurer because his regular word balloons as well. They're
sweet, man. They look hand drawn.
Yeah, they look hand drawn, and like you can tell that he didn't make one and copy it, which is what I do. So it makes me feel like a douchebag.
Well, you copy some, but I've seen your work where you have
the
varied.
The reproduct ones are easier to make not look because there's a thing like you have like I don't know. I'm not experienced or professional, but to me, I feel like you have to strike a balance between looking like you're not just taking shortcuts, but at the same time being efficient.
Yeah,
because you have to
conserving time,
right? Like you can't. And as much as I would like to make every single one of my balloons look different in some slight way, it's easier with reproduct because there's little tweaks you can do, and then when you stretch the balloons, they look different.
Well, yeah, you are
depending on how you stretch them.
In this case, what's this guy's name?
Thomas Maurer. He uses circular balloons like standard comic book balloons, and they still all look hand drawn and different.
Well, they don't look perfect. They don't look perfectly circular.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
a lot of them are elliptical.
Yeah, well, yeah. I just mean like they don't look like weird lettering.
What do you think about his tails? Because he does that thing where he lets the tail go into the balloon and doesn't.
I'm fine with it. The thing that annoys me, doesn't annoy me, but I'm not as I'm not as keen on
two balloons that connect.
Yeah, but
or like that are butted up against each other.
Yeah, and like it doesn't connect all the way. Like there's a gap, but a lot of letterers do that.
See, that didn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me either. It's something I don't like when I'm lettering, but
yeah.
This is too much. No one cares about this stuff. Anyway,
they're listening to the wrong fucking show then.
Well,
man.
I know, but like the kerning, yeah, I know. I agree. It is really close. I didn't have any problems reading it though.
It was a little more difficult for me to read. It wasn't so difficult that I got pissed and put the book down.
I think the problem is because the font. I'm really trying not to talk about this boring stuff, but I'm going to for more than another second.
This is not boring.
Well, I know, but some people are like, "This." Do you guys say this was a fantasy book? Why are we talking about letters?
They're swords and fighty. Just hold your fucking horses.
I think it's because the stroke on the font on those shadow dudes is pretty thick. Yeah. So I don't know that the kerning's necessarily off as much as it looks closer because
I think the kerning is off based on
heavy.
The stroke of the letters, because if you're going to make the letters that thick, you shouldn't put them that close because they bleed into each other.
Right, but I mean, if you up the font, the kerning's going to stay the same. It's just going to have the appearance of it being off because you can up the kerning at that point.
Yeah,
I ran into that with reproduct with the spacing, not the kerning. I don't know what they're called because I'm stupid and not trained.
The horizontal spacing.
Yeah, the spacing between like stacks of letters, lines of letters.
It's called the yearning.
Right, yearning. I think that's a Cohen and Cambria album. Yeah.
No, they fucked up this whole book. I give it a 1.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, I don't.
Anyway, I like the art in this book a lot.
I do too.
I like the coloring quite a bit too. They use a lot of purple, which is pretty cool.
The coloring is probably my favorite part of this book.
Which is stupid.
What?
That sentence I just said.
They use a lot of purple, which is neat.
Which is cool. Zero
purple.
Zero criticism. Not criticism like negative, but just zero commentary. Just me being like, oh, purple.
Well, we just talked about the fucking
pretty
fonts for 10 minutes.
Yeah, but at least with that, we're talking about like craft and technique. With this one, I'm like, I like colors because purple.
Purple, nice. No, as far as the story goes,
the story. Go ahead.
A lot of setup, obviously. First issue, so
I could have used a little bit more characterization
of Rascal.
With Rascal, yeah, because there was more characterization with the boy, the prince, and then he disappears and gets his arm ripped off, like in Powers.
Well, I think that's the point, though.
I think so too. He's obviously going to show up later and have like a sword arm or something.
I hope so.
That's I even thought that this dude who shows up later was maybe him because it
time traveled
or like alternate dimensions because those shadow dudes rip in from somewhere else.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like they're just
basically we visit a kingdom in the middle of this ceremony where the day dawns twice, which is basically how this kingdom characterizes an eclipse.
Name of my emo band in high school.
The Day Dawns Twice.
The Day Dawns Twice, yeah.
That's actually a really badass, stupid emo name.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. We opened for The Devil Wears Prada a couple times, and
Did you?
A Day to Remember. Terrible names.
Hawthorne Heights. I liked this issue. One of the things I noticed, which was weird that I latched onto this, is the Queen. She's married to this
the king.
She's married to this like king thing guy.
It's some weird alternate.
It's like
culture.
Like Britain. That's like some weird British shit.
Yeah.
No, but she's a larger lady. And I thought that was kind of a refreshing thing.
Big fat lady.
You're quoting a movie for anyone who doesn't know, so it doesn't just sound like you're making fun of fat people.
I'm fat though. So it's okay for me to be mean.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, fuck you, baldies.
I was going to say you can make fun of bald people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, no, but I was very. I loved the differentiation between body types was apparent in the issue, and that they weren't just immediately like, oh look, here comes the like fucking food server, and then it was the fat person. It was the Queen. No, like seriously, man. Normally, if you're drawing female characters within comic books, the chances are good you're going to make them tits on legs.
Yeah.
So to have her,
or not. I mean, we've improved since the '90s for the most part. I know what you're saying. Like a very like fit body type, to where maybe it's not like insanely huge tits, but it's skinny and tits.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So to see her, and I mean, as far as the rest of the people go, the differentiation between body types isn't too prevalent because she's really the only person that stood out to me as far as that goes. But I was really happy to see it.
Yeah.
The story, not really a whole lot I can say right now other than shit's gonna get nuts.
Yeah. I didn't dislike the book by any means. There was kind of too much. Say too much story or too much. There's kind of too many events happening.
I think what they did was put too many characters in the first issue.
See, I didn't have that problem as much because I could tell that he focused on Rascal, but I wanted to, I guess, know more. I kind of just didn't really know a whole lot about her other than her internal monologue obviously gives you a glimpse into her.
It does, yeah.
But not her as a person in terms of where she comes from or who she is. Or
when I say characters, obviously I don't just mean people. Because, books you're going to have people. I mean, like, literally named characters. It's like Rascal, Boris.
Yeah.
All of these names.
Arthur, which is spelled.
I was pronouncing it Arthur because I was like, no, you know what? Fuck you. If you want me to call him Arthur, you put a U there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It struck me as the very, like, George R.R. Martin, where you're like, what an interesting name. Brandon. And then you're like, oh, it's Brandon.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Bran.
His name's Brandon.
I liked it, though. There were things that kind of like maybe I don't know if it reminded me too much of Game of Thrones.
It's got a Game of Thrones feel to it, where it's got a kind of naughty fantasy. They said the F word, and
naughty
they don't shy away.
Well, like fucking dad.
Well, like it's very dirty. It's a very dirty book. Well, like the
Rascal's dirty pillows are all over the place.
It is to Game of Thrones like Deadwood did with westerns, where it's a western, but they say the F word, and like they're trying to ground it more in realism, which is kind of weird because it was the same way when I read Game of Thrones the first time. I was kind of thrown by the idea that like it's such a different magical, or in some case like a lack of magic, but there was magic in Game of Thrones and their universe. But like it's such a different world than ours, but they have the same swear words.
Well, see, that was one of the things that I noticed was I
had to get past that at first because at first I was like, oh. All right.
Well, see, I think in that case, it's one of those risks that you really have to dedicate yourself to taking that risk if you're going to make up.
We just read something that had
made up cuss words.
It was Rat Queens. That was one of the things with Rat Queens. It was hard for me is they would be like, "Suck a dick holes," and you're like, oh, "All right."
Well, see, that's I think the alternative you have to be, and I'm not saying that these writers are incapable of doing it, but I think they're making a very staunch decision to not try because the people who have not listen, what not I don't mean that. They're making a decision to not put the work in that they would have to listen to me for a second. It's easier to fail making up fake cuss words.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Because
and it's not. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think for me, I can only look at it from my perspective, but for me personally, I have to kind of be like, okay, Like it's a little weird for the first time I see it, but then I'm like, all right, they swear in this world.
Well, no,
but sometimes it takes me out of it for a second.
As much as it rankles you that they use the same swear words as we do, it would be fucking 10 times worse, or the likelihood of it being 10 times worse is so much higher if they were like, why don't you cram it up your durgle?
I mean,
and you'd be like, what?
It depends though. It depends though, because I have seen some. I think even if you have made up swear words,
yeah,
you're still going to have the same first reaction, which is getting rankled, as you said.
Well, it depends on how it works
because the first time I heard them say "frack" on Battlestar Galactica, I was like, that's weird.
That's so close to fuck, though.
Yeah, but there's aren't there some in Game of Thrones too that they
no, man, they use swear words, dude.
Yeah, I know, but in Game of Thrones, there's a very British flavor to their swear words too.
Well, they might just be British slang words we don't know about. We live in Indiana.
No. I mean, they say the C word. Which,
cunt.
Yes, which comes across as more of.
Well, yeah, but that's a real word.
No, I know.
What?
It still kind of feels to me as an American like it still feels a little bit more not foreign. I guess foreign's the right word. I don't know. This is a stupid conversation.
Fuck you.
All right, come full circle.
No, Anthony Burgess, when he wrote A Clockwork Orange, he knew he was going so far into the future that he was going to make up slang and make up curse words.
Yeah.
And
well, I know how that can backfire because then you've got everybody saying stuff that you're just like, what is this?
Well, yeah, it's like certain
madness.
parts of Atlas, Cloud Atlas, where you're like, what the fuck are you saying? I literally understood the word true, and only because you said it twice in a row like that.
I think it just depends on how it's probably easier to do in prose because
potentially,
like mudblood, like that's a word that I have a reaction to that's made up.
Well, yeah, but those are two real words put together.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
If you were like shit ass,
well, like in the Dresden books, he says, which I think it's a real. I had never heard it until the books, but now I've heard people say it outside. I guess maybe they could have gotten from the books, but I've heard old people say it.
What is it?
Chode sucker. I'm just kidding.
My grandma says that all the time.
No, he'll say hell's bells.
You'd never heard that?
I'd never heard that, but in the books it says whenever someone says it, it says swore or cursed or. And Stars and Stones is another one that he says that it'll have.
I've never heard Stars and Stones, but Hell's Bells is an actual saying.
But in the context of the books, that carries a much heavier. It's like saying the F word.
Hell's Bells?
Like I don't know, dude. Like the way he says it within the magical wizarding community or whatever.
What kind of fucking 4th grade teachers is he hanging out with?
I had never heard the word before. Maybe that's not one. I know Stars and Stones is because it says when someone says it because it's prose, it'll be like he swore or maybe he cursed.
Well.
Under his breath or whatever like that.
Maybe within the lore of his world.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
something. I think you can get away with making either completely made up words or having real words that carry more weight.
Well, no,
but there is that initial culture shock at first because you're in a new world and you're like, what?
Even though I stumbled over my words earlier, the amount of work that would have to go into...
They fail because they don't try.
Correct. Gotcha. Not only making... Because if you're making up those swear words, you're probably going to be making up a significant portion of a complete language.
Right.
Or at least, I think that's maybe one of the things you have to do if you want the swear words, the fake ones, to not come across goofy.
Well, I think it's strange because in a lot of fantasy, you see them take on... Like in Game of Thrones, you see them take on, not a dialect, but their vocabulary seems somewhat lifted from medieval
their patois
times. I don't know what that means.
Trust me, it's right.
You sound stupid, so I'm assuming it's right.
If you mean French, then oui.
I do mean that, and you're dumb.
Are you talking to our French listeners?
Do we have listeners in France?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We do have listeners in Europe. We know that.
I mean, if you're in France, yeah, you're stupid.
No.
I don't take it back.
No, he's wrong.
I do. I'm sorry. I also apologize for the 18th time to anyone who's ever had a stroke or known someone who's had a stroke.
Still
cover all my bases.
Rankles you, huh?
Yeah, it's not a bad issue by any means. I'll definitely check out issue 2.
You know the swearing, how it fucked with you? You know what did that to me?
What?
Is they were like, welcome to the kingdom of Findon, where the day's going to dawn twice. Boris, go get Arthea and Rascal. And then make sure you come back for the ceremony. It's on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Thursday, maybe? I mean, even slightly change it?
That's an easier thing to make up. Cause, I mean, I'm pretty sure in Game of Thrones they even made up days. We need to quit comparing it to Game of Thrones. It's not that.
No, it's not Game of Thrones, but I don't think it would be unfair to say that it seems inspired by
No,
it.
I don't think that's unfair either.
And in a positive way. I don't mean
yeah.
as a ripoff, but I mean like an adult fantasy kind of take on, because it features kids, so you can it seems like it might be at first glimpse like a kind of an adventure, like the movie Legend, like
What?
It has Satan in it.
That might be Satan. We don't know.
As
if
a
it is.
soundtrack by Tangerine Dream.
Correct.
That comes with the issue.
Yeah. Well, I wish.
Yeah. No, but it's not that clear cut. The kids are swearing and people are getting their arms ripped off, and this kid's parents get murdered by shadows and and violently too. So
Oh yeah, it's not bloodless.
that's the comparison I make to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's pretty violent. As far as review goes, I think we did a pretty good job here. I'm proud of us.
No, I'm not. Don't be.
The actual story,
There's
you're
kind
probably
of too,
pretty confused.
Well, yeah, there was too much. I wasn't confused when I was reading it.
I don't mean us. I mean the listeners. Right
I know,
now.
but I mean me. I mean dumb over here.
Oh,
There was a lot. That was my thing.
Oh.
That's kind of what I was trying to say before in terms of I would have preferred to see more character and less. Like I felt like there were a ton of fantasy tropes thrown at me. And I was trying to pick out what was important and what wasn't.
I think part of the problem is because I
didn't feel very eased into the world as much as I did thrown.
I didn't feel eased into the world either. But as far as first issues go, I feel like this does a good job in making me want to read more and interesting me, but also putting as many characters as they did and naming as many characters as they did. Obviously, these characters are going to play more. They're going to play a role later in the story, but
maybe
to introduce every single one of them in the first issue when you only have it's like 30 pages.
I mean, it's like, if anything, again, to bring up Game of Thrones, if there's anything I've learned from that series is that when I read those books,
there's names you don't have to pay attention to.
I can't I can't get fixated, because I remember asking you when I was reading like the first book, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this girl that they meet that takes them up the mountain to see the king in the veil or whatever. It's Catalan's like uncle. And her sister has the kid who she breastfeeds. And
correct, yeah.
Up on the mountain. What's that place called?
It's called the Eyrie. I think they
have another name,
in
too.
the show they call it the Erie. It's the Hold.
I know, but it's something. There's 4 names for everything.
Yeah,
but they have another name for it that I always remember it by. But there's a woman who takes them up that mountain because it's a real dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And I remember asking you, and you were like, "Who?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is her name. She helps them." And he was like, and you were like, "Dude, that girl never shows up again." That's not important.
She might have at this point, but I've read I haven't read.
If he brings her back in,
Dragons,
then it's maybe just a bad decision because it would have been so far later.
My guess
and
is
she pops up for that scene and then is gone.
My guess is she shows back up, but whether or not it's important, because I know for a fact that there's more story that develops with the Erie and with. Not with Catalan. I forget what her sister's name was. It's John Aaron's wife. It's not important.
Her name's Aaron.
Her name's Aaron, John Aaron's wife. It was unfortunate for her.
What do you give Umbral number 1?
I give Umbral number 1 a 6.5.
That's what I give it, but minus a half, a 6.
Really?
So I don't actually give it that, but very close. I think we had similar feelings.
I think so.
Next and last book up is Manifest Destiny number 1. Also comes out today, published by Image, and their imprint Skybound. It's written by Chris Dingess.
Dingess?
Dingess?
I hope.
Does that mean dick?
Dingess?
Or is that just like dummy?
Dingess?
Well, I know I've heard people say that as a slang, like
Dingus?
hurry up, dingus.
Yeah.
Was that actually mean penis, or is it just like
I think it's just
doofus?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that's.
I hope it's not a slur of some type, and we don't know.
And we're mispronouncing his name. I'm guaranteeing we're mispronouncing his name.
Oh, I'm sure people have his whole life. It's Dingeess. Penciled and inked by Matthew Roberts, colored by Owen Gianni.
Yep.
And lettered by Pat Brousseau, who is not an amateur. He's been around for a while.
Really?
Yeah. And DC and Marvel and all kinds of stuff. This comic book is about...
Glad you're here to tell me these things.
Me too, man. I didn't notice
all of the monsters in the grass.
Scary in the cover.
That's the first thing I noticed.
Really? It's purple, though. I love purple.
Yeah. So far, this issue is great for you.
This comic book is about an alternate world, basically.
Is it, though? Is it, David?
Is this for dramatic effect that you're saying this?
Not really, but...
Well, I mean, Lewis and Clark in real life didn't go...
Do we know that?
Okay. That's what I assumed you were doing. They, that we know of, didn't go out in search of adventure and monsters and uncovering new, strange things.
Including the St. Louis Ark made out of plants.
Yeah. But that's what they do. Oh, that could be half a Stargate. We don't know.
I hope it's that.
Or half a donut.
If that's half a donut, it's a skinny donut.
I mean, it's also a huge donut.
That's a good point.
So skinny,
But big. Right.
This is stupid. All right, so they go exploring. Do you want to take over?
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
Thanks, Scott.
As far as David's pleasure for the amount of purple in this book, he's going to be sad. Other than the cover, there's not a lot of other purple.
No purple. Although I do think the coloring in this book is pretty good.
The colors are beautiful.
I like the art a lot,
The
too.
penciling and overall art and storytelling of the issue is very well done. There's some flashbacks where they use alternate color schemes, specifically sort of like a gray tone with spot shots of red.
The
sticks out really, really awesomely and looks great.
The artist has like a what's his name who did Fear Agent and the beginning of Walking Dead?
Remender wrote it. It was
correct.
Emery said Rick Remender.
It's
Tony.
just naming other people.
Tony Moore.
Tony Moore. He's got like a Tony Moore. At sometimes he kind of reminds me of Farrell Dalrymple on his faces, and then also a little
Max Fiumara is what I sort of see.
A little bit of that too. His art's good, man. I
really, really love the faces that he has.
Yeah, he's got a good handle on expressions
because not only are the expressions amazing, but the characters and the absolute just different faces on all the characters is really awesome.
Yeah.
There's a couple mercenaries who have been hired onto Lewis and Clark's
They kind of get more screen time, so to speak, and more development than Lewis and Clark do.
I don't think it's Lewis and Clark's book. I think they're in it, but I don't know.
Oh, you mean the comic?
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to take center stage as far as storyline goes.
Because, potentially not.
Because these mercenaries are being paid to come along with Lewis and Clark and the soldiers that they have on their expedition, which you find out through the course of the issue that everyone on the expedition has no family whatsoever, so they have no ties.
The mercenaries figure that out.
And
some people are getting paid. The mercenaries, they're mercenaries, but they're really prisoners who...
They're basically slaves.
Yeah.
But
if they can go on the expedition and help, when they get back, they get their freedom.
Yeah, indentured servitude, basically.
Yeah. But then, like you said, the two mercenaries start to piece together, all right, none of us have families, so essentially we're not going to be missed if we die.
Because I don't know if they know at that point that they're searching for monsters. Lewis and Clark, the word monster is used a few times before the final payoff of the issue, but
at that point it could be beasts that they've never seen.
Like, you never get the sense that they're like, we're gonna fucking look for werewolves,
hydras.
Yeah, like they just say monsters. And there's what do you think about the lettering? It's not cursive, but it's a very handwritten font that they've chosen.
I was fine with that. It's just it's just a lowercase indented. That's all it is.
What's that mean?
Like it's a. Well, you mean indented, obviously, but like it's just like we use for reproduct.
Yeah,
it's a lowercase font. It's not because most comic book fonts are all caps.
Yeah,
this isn't. So that's why it looks handwritten, but it's a font. It's not.
Well, I knew it was a font.
Yeah,
but I wasn't sure because you've expressed displeasure.
I have displeasure.
Handwritten fonts,
not with handwritten fonts. With handwritten fonts that are too realistic and handwritten that I have to strain to read what it is because I can't read through someone's handwriting.
Yeah.
Which the thing I always think of is, as much as I love that book, Batman Year One.
Yeah.
A lot of the journal stuff in there is really hard to read.
You also in the unwritten.
Oh yeah, that one volume.
Just like that stuff in the unwritten.
It was just one volume. It was the one with the Silver Age comic book stuff.
And, no, it's before that, man. It's like issue. Before that Silver Age stuff shows up, there's that issue where they're following.
That stuff must have not bothered me because the only time.
No, the very first time I ever heard you say something about it was that issue.
I know you want me to be upset.
I'm not trying to make you upset, but I know you're wrong.
Oh, thanks, man. No, the only stuff that I've ever been bothered by in that is all right. It's the Silver Age stuff. The reason I didn't go back, I didn't read that all together at first was because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But then you were like, no, man, you should read it again. That's not this comic. But this one, I liked this book, actually. I was never, ever... It was very easy to read.
I liked it, too.
Which, for first issues, is sometimes a challenge because...
This one didn't hook me as much as Umbral did.
Well, it's a much softer sell in terms of, like, a new world. Because it's a world that we know with slight alterations, and Umbral is... Everything's new, but we say F word.
Oddly...
And everything's purple.
Oddly, where we discussed Umbral being more... sudden and not easing us into the world, but lurching.
Yeah.
This is much more of an ease.
Oh yeah. The only lurch is basically the very end.
It's the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Which it's weird because I don't think that's a detriment to this book that it eases into it.
No. And it's not really a detriment to Umbral, it's just a different approach.
One thing that stuck out with me with the writing, it's so minor that I hesitate to mention it, and yet I'm going to mention it.
So you don't hesitate.
I do hesitate, but I do not stop.
Oh, okay.
There's one part where the guy he shoots that bird.
Yeah.
It's Lewis.
At the very beginning.
It's Lewis. Maybe it's Clark. It's Lewis or Clark.
My young brain has been forever damaged
By a lot of things.
By the adventures of Lois and Clark.
Oh yeah.
That every single time Lewis and Clark get brought up, for a split second, I'm like, one of these is supposed to be a girl. I think one of them's a girl. But then my mind goes to Almost Heroes.
I told you about that time that my ex-girlfriend's sister thought we were talking about Lois and Clark when we were talking about Lewis and Clark.
Thought you were talking about Superman and Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Dean Cain.
Yeah.
What was that actress's name?
It's Terry Hatcher.
Terry Hatcher.
Yeah.
That was a bad show.
Dragon Catcher.
Dragon Hatcher.
No, Catcher.
I know. Terry Hatcher, Dragon Hatcher.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's way less creative.
It is. I know. That's why I changed it to Catcher. Terry Hatcher, Dragon Hatcher. Anyway, they're discussing shooting that bird, and he's like, well, call it Clark's Gall or something like
Heron,
that.
I think.
Clark's Heron. And then the guy who's writing it says, if every animal you shot bared your name, you would have a menagerie.
The guy who's writing the book within the comic.
Yeah.
Not the writer of the comic.
No, yeah, the guy writing the journal. And when he said, if every animal you have shot bared your name, I was like, man, that looks fucking weird.
And weird?
No, fucking weird.
Oh.
I kind of stumbled.
Yeah.
And then I was like, shouldn't it be bore? If every animal you shot bore your name, you'd have a menagerie. So I looked it up, and people do say the word bared.
Maybe that's an older pronunciation of it, like an old-timey.
I don't know. It just seemed so weird and like anachronistic to me.
I didn't notice it. I did read something. Oh, it's the last book we can review that we forgot about.
What's that?
That Batman one.
Oh, it's not a book.
No, but I mean, it's a story. It has a typo right at the beginning.
Does it?
Big one. Yeah, anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, but that was like the most minor thing that stuck out to me. So I'm going to mention it and take 3 points off of the score.
I was going to say, let me figure out what the most minor thing I can think of is, since we're doing that.
There's no purple on the inside.
That's true. That's true.
What do you think about this fucking St. Louis Arch? What do you think's going on there?
I didn't immediately think of the St. Louis Arch, but I don't think that you shouldn't, because that's exactly what it looks like.
That's it. It's the St. Louis Arch.
Well, I thought of
plants.
The first thing I thought of was the thing from Prometheus, the ship.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I mean, I don't think they're pulling from, but I mean, it's a big arch.
It's the St. Louis Arch. Like that's the river.
Are they in where's St. Louis, Missouri?
Yeah.
Are they in Missouri?
Also named after Lewis from Lewis and Clark, I'm pretty sure, right?
It's spelled differently, so I don't think so.
It is, but that doesn't mean anything.
I think it might mean something if they spelled his name wrong.
It could mean something, but it doesn't necessarily mean something.
I don't. When was that built?
The arch?
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean that's not the actual arch. You know, it's not made out of plants, right?
I assumed it wasn't made out of plants. No, I knew it wasn't supposed to be the actual one, but I didn't know if maybe. I mean, we're already dealing with a history where a bison man with an arm cybernetically attached to his face attacks them at the end. So I wondered if maybe this was actually supposed to be the St. Louis Arch because we're in a different timeline, or time travel, or something like that.
It makes me wonder if they did time travel, and that's why.
Also, I don't think it would be named after him because I don't think he was a saint.
What?
Lewis from Lewis and Clark?
Does that what?
I think.
It's not the town that it's named after him. Not the town of St. Louis.
What? St. Louis?
It's not called the fucking St. Louis Arch.
Yeah. What? St. Louis Arch?
I thought it is called that. What's it
called
then?
Not that.
Shut up,
Emery.
asshole! It is. I think it's called the Arch. It's the gateway to the West.
Okay.
It is.
I'm not laughing. I am laughing at you, but only because you're stupid.
I really took a turn there in the middle of your sentence.
Called the Gateway Arch.
The gateway. It's an arch. It's an arch.
You're an arch.
If that's your
Wow.
argument,
That's offensive.
I'm gonna not say what I've not said.
Anyway, at the end of the comic, one of the mercenaries takes advantage of one of the leaders being injured, and he breaks his neck. So they're going to have some type of potential uprising within the group.
because
they also
he
pick a flower
That looks like death.
It looks like a demon,
Death
scary face.
Yeah.
Off of the arch, and then they get attacked by what looks like a buffalo of some type. You don't see it for the most part, and then you notice that it's holding a tomahawk and an arm.
Yeah. By the way, the city of St. Louis was named after Louis IX of France.
I assumed because it was spelled different.
That doesn't mean anything, but you were right.
It does mean something.
It doesn't.
It could have been an
to mean
accident.
something.
It could have been an accident where they're like, one of our city's biggest blunders is that we spelled the name wrong of something we named it after.
In this case, it does.
Just like the thing at Harvard where it's like, this is the statue of 3 lies or whatever it is.
Shut
when
up.
Buffalo Bill's on their tour guide.
Shut your mouth.
Can anyone say what these lies are?
And then it attacks them at the end, and it looks like it might be like a minotaur or a centaur of some type.
What'd
but then
you
when
say about hand, face, what now?
it's got an arm like cybernetically attached to the side of its head. Like that's it.
Does it?
Yeah, like this is like the animal body part, and then you can see like the buffalo-esque head up here, and then this thing it shows it again in the close-up of the arm when it's running. It's got these like metal plates.
I think that arm that you're seeing is its right arm bent under it. It only has 2 arms up on its like man torso.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I thought that was another leg, and that was just attached to it.
No.
Okay, so it is a centaur type looking thing.
Because there's its 2 front like horse legs.
I see it now. It's laying down really weird. But I mean, it also looks like someone threw up soup and it turned into a buffalo.
Well, it also fell like awkwardly.
Yeah.
So it looks good.
They kill it, and they look at it, and it looks terrifying.
Yeah.
And
Then they're like, oh, fuck! Credits.
that's the end of the issue. And then I think in the afterword, he says the word dickhole.
Really?
Yeah, he does. Did you read the afterword?
I didn't.
He says when he was a little kid, his parents owned a little market, and this is the writer talking, Chris Dingess or whatever, and he would read comics in the back room, and he says, I'd skip Richie Rich and his ilk. I always thought he was a dickhole.
I think we could be friends with
Speaking
Chris.
of dickholes, make an appearance.
I think we could be friends with this Chris guy.
I like this. I
Or
like this
girl,
one too.
I guess.
Yeah, it could be. I'll read the next issue. I kind of felt the similar way as Umbral in different ways, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like you said, this is much more of an ease than a shock to your system like Umbral is.
Yeah.
This one I think I connected a little bit more with in terms of there was more of a focus on the characters and less on like
The
events.
world.
Yeah. Well, there's still a focus on the world, like because of that arch and
Well, there is,
and
yeah.
weird. But yeah, Umbral is very much a
Umbral was they're building
world
the
is
world
crazy.
and showing you
Look at everything.
a huge palette,
Look at everything,
including the purple,
purple.
a huge palette of characters. Whereas this, I think
drawing
you're
on
right.
stuff you already know.
The characters do take center stage, are right up front, and whether or not I don't know where the fuck they are. It just makes.
Did
me,
they not say at the beginning?
Like,
This seems like something that they would say off the bat, like, we're traveling down the Mississippi.
Why did you say it like that? Like a dickhead?
Is that how dickheads talk?
Yes.
Then I don't have an answer for you. I guess I'm a dickhead.
If
They're on a mission from President Jefferson. We didn't mention that.
well, what's the?
And he's also
they're filling out the map of the contiguous United States.
British territory, Indian territory.
If
I mean,
you-
it stops at Kentucky, Tennessee.
I was gonna say Indiana's not even there.
Yeah, it's in does it say Indian territory or
Yeah.
does that say Indiana?
It says Indian territory, and they mention the Indians a few times.
That's an A though. It says Indiana territory.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe there was a tribe called Indiana. We should know that. We live in Indiana.
You idiots! This is what balls do.
We never got any of those emails either.
I know.
You're fucking failures.
He when he's making the journal too, he crosses some stuff out because he knows it's going to be basically
For
read
posterity's
by-
sake, yeah. That
Where
was
he's
another
basically
thing.
like the president's a giant dickhole.
Did they call them Indians in this time period, or would they have called them Native Americans? I'm assuming they would have been racist. Emery is shaking his head like he's a fucking expert. I'm not going to ask him.
Don't even look at him. Pretend he's not here.
Because my
Indians, I think,
Gut-
or Injuns,
I was going to say
is what Mark Twain has taught me.
my gut instinct is that they would be as racist and shitty to them as possible.
Well, yes, but I mean, I wouldn't say it like that because
Why? We were fucking racist assholes. We stole their land.
I agree. But I think in terms of using the word using the word Indian or Injun or however they said it back then, like
Yeah.
there's going to be part of it that it's like a cultural thing, which doesn't mean that it's right. And in posterity we can look at it and be like, yeah, we shouldn't say that, just like we shouldn't say colored. but there was a time where that was a normal thing to say.
Oh yeah, culturally.
So I don't think everyone was like hell bent on being racist.
No, I didn't say everyone that lived back then was racist, although I assume.
But they at least when the buffalo face arm thing shows up, they're like they mention specific Indian tribes as it being from there potentially. Like after they shoot it, the guys are like,
yeah, it's like Iroquois.
Is it Shoshone? Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Sioux, Blackfoot, and he's like, no, dude, he has arms coming out the side of his head.
He's like, no, this is like Aslan shit.
This
man.
is like space.
What?
Is this space lions?
I think that's two insane leaps. We're like, this is space, right? And they're like, we think the world's flat, dude. What are you talking about? What'd you rate this out of 10?
Same as Umbral, I think.
Which was?
6. Yeah, 6.
I give it a 6.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I would recommend it.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to review that Batman?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about it.
That Batman fan comic?
I mean, we can talk about it because this would be the best segment to talk about it.
I don't know about reviewing it.
All right.
I just mean it's kind of impossible to review because it's...
I don't think it's impossible to review. I can review anything on you right now if I wanted to.
What about this? What about this smile?
I'm surprised it didn't have something to do with your dick.
Whatever. I don't know. That's all I've got, man. Okay. I figured you would just be like, I'll review your dick right now.
I see that was the obvious way to go. I don't feel on point right now, man. Do you want to do some drugs and then come back to this?
You've actually been pretty terrible all night long.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
This comic is called Batman the Plan.
Yeah, I do. Do you have a cocaine gun on you?
And it's a fan comic that popped up on, is it called The Plan?
I don't remember.
Am I going crazy?
Yeah.
I think it's on, was it on Bleeding Cool?
Where you sent it to me was from
Wired.
Wired.
Yeah, I'll find it real quick.
Which is a strange place for it to be because Wired is normally like, hey, do you want to know how to use headphones? Come to our website.
Well, they have they've got a big section of their website that's geek comic. Like that's where Laura Hudson works now. She
Wired?
writes there. Yeah, that's what she left Comics Alliance for. It's a fan comic that popped up. I saw Justin Jordan talk about it on Facebook, and it started popping up on Twitter and
Justin
everything.
Jordan, the writer of
Legend of Luther Strode and Strange Town of Luther Strode and all those comics.
Yeah.
And from there, then started getting picked up by Wired, Robot 6, Bleeding Cool, all those places. I'm pulling it up right now, and my internet's being slow, so I can't tell you who wrote it or who drew it.
Picked up by enough people.
I found it. Gerardo Preciado and illustrated by Daniel Bayliss. And the actual website, when you go to it, it's their blog.
Yeah.
I think most of it on the site is in Spanish. It's in Spanish. So maybe they're from Spain, Mexico, some Spanish-speaking country of some type. I don't know.
Could be the USA.
Yeah, it could be, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it could, man.
It could be. Could be from China, too, man.
Oh, I know.
It's called The Deal, not The Plan.
Yeah.
It picked up a lot of attention because it's
beautiful.
A, beautifully illustrated, and B, it's very much a story that DC wouldn't tell.
Absolutely never, ever.
It opens with the very first page has the credits and the title, and it has Jim Gordon laying there dead, violently dead.
Yeah.
And Alfred cut up into pieces in a box.
Correct.
And it says with a little tag on it, to Bruce with love, XOXO. And then from there,
Bruce picks up the pieces of Alfred and then weeps over him.
yeah, and remembers when Alfred was kind to him. It shows a wide shot of this giant blimp with the smile face that they're in and laughter coming from it, so you know immediately it's the Joker. Then it shows the Joker dancing around with Robin's arm. It's pretty crazy, and it's actually really, really. It's very, to me, it pulled me in immediately.
Me
I was
too.
like, this is so different and crazy and
It's
awesome and
so
beautiful.
different. The Joker is the sort of like Cesar Romero or Cesar Romero, however you pronounce it.
He's like Cesar Romero mixed with like a little porcelain clown doll kid face. Like Ronald McDonald, with
creepy. With your grandpa's dentures shoved into his
Well,
face.
see, that's the artist, too, because he does that with Batman's teeth. I noticed that my second
It's
read-through.
very strange, the amount of teeth that these characters have.
They like teeth.
They do. I think this fan comic succeeds largely because of the art.
Oh, yeah, I would say almost.
There's not really a story.
There is a story. That's why, to me, it's not super revolutionary like people kind of talked about. We're like, this is amazing. I'm speechless. Because it takes something that's very interesting and is to me, the most interesting thing about Batman and the Joker, which is their relationship where Chris Nolan and
I was gonna
David
say-
Goyer have already covered this in The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
where he's hanging upside down.
They
and-
need each other.
Yeah, they need each other. But he takes it to a further level where Batman accepts that and accepts basically that they both have to die and that they love each other and lets them
Probably
fall.
the creepiest part of the entire issue of the entire story is when Joker is like monologuing and he's like, "I could have been your wife, Bruce."
No, he says, "I was.
I was your wife.
In your past life, I want to be naked again, and I want
to be free.
I want to be free, and I want to feel you, and all that stuff." Which that stuff I liked because I was
it's
like, "That
all
is nuts."
fucking crazy. It's good. You should absolutely read it. It's not the best Batman thing ever, which a lot of the internet immediately decreed it to be.
There's the typo. What the hell are you talking about?
Well,
It's just very strange because the lettering right there, I think, is
it
handwritten.
all looks handwritten.
So they have a tussle and they fall out, and they have a pretty similar scene in The Dark Knight where they're holding onto each other, and Joker's like, "Yeah, let me feel your wife's skin," and then Bruce is like, "Yeah, I know, this has to be the way it is," and he lets himself drop. And then my least favorite part of the comic happens, which is this long quote from Bill Hicks.
Yeah. Bill Hicks, the comedian.
Yeah. I didn't like that part. I think that it's neat to have. I think the quote is interesting, and I think that it fits what they're trying to do. But I would have much rather seen the writer extrapolate that into something of his own, or maybe write something similar and then give credit. But having a Bill Hicks quote at the end pulled me out of it quick. Because it's like reading this long thing and then it being like Kevin Smith.
That's
I'm
exactly
like,
what happens.
All right.
I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is like, I'm with you. And then, yeah, it's like Bill Hicks.
Yeah. Which sucks because the imagery is really cool. Like when they're falling, they show one-shot panels of different things of their history that were very important, like Bruce's parents getting killed, the bat flying through the window, Joker getting the Red Hood mask, and then the box thing earlier. And then when they hit the ground, their blood splatter makes a bat kind of shape, which is pretty cool.
I was gonna say it's not overt enough where it's not like a perfectly formed bat, but it is in bat-esque shape.
Yeah,
like they did it well.
Yeah.
I like it. It's very awesome. Hopefully this
is the kind of stuff
team gets some kind of job out of it.
Yeah,
and gets to do more comics.
I hope so too, man. I really like the art a lot,
and they deserve to be doing something else.
The writing, even though to me the idea isn't very original, the fact that someone has their head in that space. That's the kind of stuff that even if it doesn't succeed, that's the kind of stuff I like to see in Batman Black and White.
Well,
where you have an idea that's crazy,
yeah,
or that's out there, and even if it don't stick the landing, the fact that you're taking it to a place where other people
things,
aren't going to do it,
well,
and that's why we didn't do Batman Black and White #3 today. Because to me, it was you haven't read it. I read it and I was like, we're not going to have anything to talk about, dude. It was a bunch of stories where it was like Batman and Robin go fight people. Batman fights this guy and saves the day. Like it's very
Batman
boring.
broods about his parents.
Yeah, very boring. Been there, done that type of stuff.
Well, see, in this case with this fan story, it's a very risky tale because Batman fucking dies.
Yeah,
and
lets himself die.
Kills
himself.
Yeah, obviously this would be out of continuity, and obviously you're saying very, very radical things about the character.
Yeah.
But I think taking risks like this and doing stories like this where, I mean,
to me, why else would you write these characters if you just wanted? I mean, I get like people like Ed Brubaker who just love genre stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, I want to do a really solid, like we were talking about that Velvet book where it was like, I heard him pitch it on a podcast as James Bond gets murdered and Moneypenny gets framed. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty solid, at least that first issue we thought was a solid spy thing, but it's not new.
It's not breaking the mold.
No, not at all.
And also the idea of breaking the mold with a character like Batman, who has existed since, fucking early 60s.
Oh, earlier, 30s.
30s, whatever.
Long time ago.
It's like 1980 is when he was invented. Frank Miller invented him.
Yeah. The one we like was invented then.
Like, breaking the mold with something like that is a very, very difficult thing to do. And this doesn't break the mold by any means.
No. Well, it directly pulls from The Killing Joke by Alan Moore. I mean, that relationship between Batman and the Joker, I'm sure there'd be people who would argue that it came before, but to me, that's like the defining moment where people looked at it as it's a very deep, psychologically
the
fractured,
idea of
emotional connection.
The Joker being one half of the
the coin,
the like psychosis that Batman has.
Right.
Like Batman himself is the Joker.
The Joker can't exist without Batman, and the Batman can't exist without Joker.
Well, yeah, like they are both deeply and irrevocably mentally altered.
Right.
And the way their lives have gone in the past have sent them on alternate paths, but the paths connect.
Right.
And, you know, they weave in and out of each other. They cross paths and go back and forth. And it's a very interesting concept, and it's something that a lot of people could do really cool things with, and this is a really cool thing.
Yeah. No, it is very cool. The only thing that he really does different is basically take it to, because that's one of the coolest thing, not even an extreme, but take it to a point where that's one of the most interesting things about their relationship is that's one of my favorite things about The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
Is that the Joker, as soon as Batman leaves, he's out. He stops. He goes into the insane asylum. He goes into Arkham Asylum or whatever, and he just kind of shuts down. And then as soon as Batman comes back, he gets out. He's back. He comes back and messes around because Batman's there.
Oh, wait, I was thinking of
Not the movies.
the movie.
No. The Dark Knight Returns is the comic from the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while.
And so like that whole aspect, and then the thing that he does have at the end of The Dark Knight, where he essentially says, "I'm not going to stop until you kill me, but you're never going to kill me."
Yeah.
Like, you refuse to do it. This will end if you kill me. Like, just putting me away doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But that's what you stand for, so you're not going to do it any other way. So that's their relationship, is this eternal struggle of Batman won't kill, Joker won't stop unless he's killed. So it's this endless cycle.
Yeah.
So basically what this team did is say,
there is an end.
there is an end here. Here's the end.
Yeah.
And it's Batman. In this case, Batman accepts that they both have to die because it won't stop.
Yeah, the amount of lives.
Also, it's kind of easy for him to die when everyone got hacked apart.
all the people he
I mean,
loved.
what's he going to do? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting concept too, and that could potentially be an interesting book.
Yeah.
Or at least a story, whether or not it would be a whole book, is to see Bruce.
That's why stuff like this and that Josh Simmons comic are so interesting, because
You mean the like Batman parody thing he does in
yeah, it's weird though, because it's not even really a parody. It's a Batman book, but it's just like,
he doesn't have a bat on his chest, right?
yeah,
Does he?
Yeah, he's got. It's a sweet symbol too.
I'm surprised he's not been sued.
Well, I think
They probably have to classify it as parody then.
I mean, they probably have to, like, legally, they probably have to say it's parody, but it's not. It's not like Ratman. I mean, it's Batman. But yeah, this is interesting, man. It was pretty cool to see it pop up. The art, I definitely want to see more of. I hope that Marvel or DC or Image
I want
or
to
somebody
see. I
picks
want to
them
see
up.
more of the art, and I want to see more of from the writer too.
Me too, because yeah, like I said earlier, if that's the
Up-
kind of dude where you're willing to tell that story,
oh yeah, and up until the
I want to
Bill,
see what else you have to
up
say.
until the Bill quote or the Bill Hicks quote shows up, where
Strange.
it takes a
turn.
very odd 90-degree,
Yeah.
like left. I think the writing, especially Joker's monologue and the very tiny amounts of interaction that the characters can have, because it's like 10 pages.
Yeah, and it's mostly just the Joker. Bruce is the whole time. It's just like, stop it, you're crazy. What are you talking about?
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
It's good though. You should check it out. Batman the Deal. It's on.
Do you think
internet near you?
Do you think that the quote at the end would have been easier to swallow, or maybe even just okay and done well if it would have been someone else?
I don't know.
Or do you think if it's just the fact that there's a quote from someone who is real?
I don't know. Because
the part that really pulls me out is that it's Bill Hicks, who is someone who is not that old. Like, if it would have been someone like Aristotle, I still would have been like, that's a pretty college freshman thing to do, but all right. But it's like a very
I think the
famous,
problem with
revered
me is-
person. But Bill Hicks, as much as he is liked and revered, he's a comedian from like the 80s.
Well, see,
right?
that's the thing. For me, it was a combination of it being Bill Hicks and then him being a comedian.
Right.
And while comedians usually are kind of renowned, depending on who they are, for saying truthful things and delivering hard truths even, which
Right.
I think Bill Hicks was known for, and doing it with a lot of cussing,
Yeah.
which is a man after my heart.
Yeah.
I think it's just such an odd concept, because when I see the name Bill Hicks, I don't associate it with philosophy, and I don't associate it with
Batman.
not even Batman, but just like a critical,
Like a deep, yeah.
like critical thinking.
Yeah.
Which I know Bill Hicks did that, and he
Well,
was
it's not-
obviously a really awesome writer, because he wrote
That's
those
the
jokes.
thing. I know what you're saying, because when you read the quote, it's not, you're like, man, this sounds like a bit. this sounds like a comedy bit.
No, yeah.
It's like it
It's
sounds
not
like something
that.
from an interview.
Yeah, and
where
I
he
think-
was saying this thing, and then you get to the
It
end,
might-
and
it
it's
might
like
have been.
George Carlin.
Well, no, seriously, it would have been the fight. Like we got to the end, it was like Joe Rogan, which Joe Rogan's super fucking smart, and
Yeah.
that guy knows what he's talking about. But in this context,
Yeah.
it's such a strange change
Yeah.
to have that almost completely separate thing be brought into this.
It makes me almost wonder if it would have been credited at the beginning, if it would have been like, if it would have had his name at the beginning in some way, if I would have read the quote without the tag where it's like Bill Hicks, if it would have been easier for me to swallow. It's just, I don't know.
I think
it's
so.
just interesting because it makes me wonder if it was the delivery of it that made me and you be like, that's weird.
Well, because I didn't know it was Bill Hicks until the very, very end.
Oh, me neither.
So if at the beginning they said with a quote by Bill Hicks,
Yeah, or something like that.
I potentially would have maybe viewed it differently. This is also a lot of scrutiny for a tiny.
But I think it's
tiny
interesting
fan
because
story.
we both really liked it and had a pretty adverse reaction to that particular thing.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I like to deconstruct that stuff.
me too. I hope this team gets a chance to do some stuff that gets them more attention and
I bet they
potentially.
will. Because they got a ton of attention.
Probably, yeah. This brought a lot of people's eyes. DC would, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck they'll do. Offer them a job? No.
I mean, maybe.
If they offer them a job, it'll be doing something.
Stop myself.
It'll be doing something that is not this.
My answer is maybe.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want, DC. I have nothing to say, bad or good.
Well, we know they'll do whatever they
Good
want.
luck, man.
Brand new segment means brand new opportunity for us to name it something stupid, potentially put brand new dumb music in also. This is all David's fault. Blame him.
What is there a play on word we could use with prompts?
Prompts?
That's kind of like an not unrhymable, but it doesn't really roll off the tongue in terms of wordplay, does it?
The prompt queens.
Oh, like prom.
Prom queens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm good with that. Prompt, fuck you. This is a good.
I mean, it was a pretty good suggestion. I thought, yeah.
Prompts and circumstance, yeah. Also related to high school.
Well, and high school graduation that's the song, right? That thing.
You started in a weird place. At first, I was going to make fun of you, but yes,
Like
that's-
emotionally?
That's the song. Yeah. Uh-huh.
You started off at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's
Weeping.
it. Yeah.
That'd be an easy theme thing to make, intro to make. We could do that song like John. Huh?
You just made it.
I guess I could just rework me. We could do John.
You keep starting in a weird place.
We could do. We could do John
on a
Carpenter.
down note.
John Carpenter doing that song.
Oh yeah, we should.
I want to make that. Let's just hurry up and finish the segment so we can do that more fun thing.
We have to play games though.
Games.
Card games.
Games.
Yes,
We don't have to do that.
I agree. And yet I want to.
I always want to play games.
Anyway, David had a dumb
Sex games.
fucking idea. Actually, it's not a dumb idea. It's an okay idea. I'm willing to say that it's a mediocre idea. As
Thanks,
far as
man.
David goes, it's probably the best he's ever going to come up with.
All right.
We didn't have a ton to talk about tonight because the news was very slow. We could have reviewed some more books, but we didn't. They would have been from last week, 2 weeks ago, actually.
Just last week.
Anyway, we're doing this segment David came up with.
I got to talk about that briefly. The reason we're not talking about that Ultimates Cataclysm, Ultimates Last Stand is because, in my opinion, it's one of the worst books Bendis has written. And I say this as a fanboy of Bendis.
No, we love Bendis.
Like, in terms of a single issue, it was very, very bad,
Yeah.
I thought.
I didn't read it. David said I didn't need to, and I listened
We talk about
to whatever David says.
The importance of not overusing people's names.
Correct.
Miles calls Gonki.
It's Genki.
Or Genki 5 times in the first page.
Yeah.
The first lines of dialogue are, "Where are we going, Miles?" And Miles saying, "Genki, I don't know." So immediately I was like, all right, Bendis, you don't usually do this. But
Yeah,
then it
that's
has all
weird.
the hallmarks of, like, when people criticize Bendis, it's got, like, random Yiddish slang from characters who aren't Jewish. And then the decompression in terms of, like, fighting. It was just, I couldn't
mess.
believe it, yeah.
We didn't talk about that. We did read The Sandman.
That was from 2 weeks ago.
Which is amazing. So our review is that. It's great. And then some other books that we didn't review. Anyway, David said that we should do a segment that we sort of did in a bastardized, lightning round version, way the hell back on Alter Ego before we ever did Hideous Energy, which was a word association type deal. In this case, though, rather than just saying words and having the other person fire a word back at you, we were going to have questions and
that
or
segment
subjects.
basically devolved into
it was
honeybees, balls, penis, cock.
Yeah,
that was basically it every time.
How many things can I say that make you think about dicks?
Yeah.
And in our case, it's an infinity symbol.
Oh yeah, infinity things.
Yeah,
you could say vaginas, and I would be like penis, cocks, dicks,
in
balls,
that case,
boners.
That one kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you could also be like Jesus, and I could say the same stuff. So
now that's fucked up, and probably a little bit more of a glimpse into your psyche. In this case, we're going to do either questions, subjects, objects. Just something that we're going to give to the other person and then have them return words to us and you also, the listener.
The way I described it to Austin is almost like we go off on tangents anyway, so it's like tangents with structure. So we can be like, what do you think about vampire hair? And we can be like, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy that you brought that up. And actually, I have an opinion on vampire hair if you want to discuss it later. Because my first question is, do you remember anything from your childhood, like a word or a phrase that absolutely stuck in your fucking head and either confused you so badly that you had no idea what it meant?
I feel like we're off on a bad foot already. This is a very specific question that I feel like you have an answer to that I would have to think about for a while to figure out if I have. I was thinking the prompts would be I gave you this as an example.
Did you?
So I'm very confused as to why you basically ignored that. I said 89 Batman. And then it would be, because it's stuff that may not organically ever come up, but it's
just like what I just said.
Yeah, your thing is did you ever, between the age of 5 and 5.5,
I didn't say that specifically.
Have a specific thing that happened that stuck with you when your uncle came over?
Look, man,
and
I'm trying to get to the core of David Hopkins, which apparently,
by way of specific events from Austin's childhood,
is filled with dicks and Jesus imagery.
Jesus imagery, yes. Dicks, not really. That came later. Do what you will with that. All right, finish your question that's basically unanswerable so far.
The second part of my question is why you fucker. No, okay, I'll start over then. I'll give you a different question.
Well, I mean, was that what was the end of the question?
Well, that you that either you had seen or heard adults interacting with and you pretended to understand it because they did, and then you later found out what it actually meant. We have talked about it briefly because of that Batman movie, because the dude who plays Arliss from the TV show Arliss, his name is Knox, and he says to Vicky Vale, "I eat light," in the movie, because they're going to go out to dinner, and he tells her that he eats light.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Is he a superhero?
He's a star.
He eats light?
Yeah.
I didn't know what the fuck it meant. And I remember hearing my parents giggle at that.
What's the setup? How was that a joke?
It's not a joke, but it was his delivery.
Oh.
Or maybe my parents were just pretending. My mom thought my dad knew what it meant, and he thought she knew what it meant. So
I know, but I don't. But what is there to interpret though? Is is the setup that she's paying for his dinner? So he's saying I eat light, meaning
I don't know. I can't remember that
okay.
context, but I remember me not knowing what the fuck it meant as a kid, and my parents interacting with it, and then me being like, ha, ha, yeah, I'm right there.
Accept me.
Yeah, and then later on when I was older, understanding that he meant that
he's a deity, that he actually eats light.
He actually synthesizes light and then shits it out into darkness. He's
a god.
Yeah. But we don't have to answer that because you're such a fucking asshole.
Well, that setup is basically you being able to answer your own question and me being like, no, man.
No.
That didn't happen to me.
You know what? Yes, I could answer that question.
No, it's supposed to be prompts, not specific questions.
You could answer it too.
Well, sometimes we hope for things and they don't happen.
Okay, skateboards. Thoughts?
I could do that. That's what I'm saying. That's a prompt to where I could actually figure something like that out. I could talk a lot about skateboards.
All right, I'll start then. Vampire hair. My thought on vampire hair is this. Their bodies are dead, so their hair should never, ever fucking grow. There's a lot.
But should it stay at the same length?
Absolutely, yes. Anne Rice.
But why would it grow back if it doesn't grow?
Well, see, that's where
That's where magic comes in.
No, it really is. That's where their regenerative abilities. Because if I stab a vampire and then it drinks blood, its body would then mend the wound, depending on what vampire lore you're discussing. Because if I stab a vampire and its body's dead, would it still have the healing mechanisms that human bodies come with naturally, like coagulating blood and scabs forming and stuff like that? I don't know. It just kind of depends.
I don't know.
You
set all that up like you had it.
Not sure.
Who knows?
Well, no, but
the jury's out.
The idea that their bodies do heal because they're supernatural. They are dead bodies that are animated by.
I get that, but at that
blood.
point, you're very specifically like accepting or taking Anne Rice's thing. Because I've never seen that happen in any other vampire story.
Well, where Lydia or Claudia cuts her hair and then it grows back to the length that it was.
Yeah.
Because
you do have to be like magic, because it is growing back.
Well, it grows back at a very rapid rate, too.
Right.
She goes to the room and then comes back out and her hair is back to what it was.
Yeah.
And that's when
they didn't have a budget for CG.
Yeah, they weren't like, don't show it on screen. Neil Jordan was like, have her go to the fucking bedroom. And it works.
Yeah.
They spent their CG budget on other things.
Cutting people in half.
Yeah.
I mean, that's money well spent.
It is, yeah. They made the right
Is that in
decision.
the books? The hair thing?
I think so, yeah.
So I'm assuming she probably goes more in depth than
Claudia.
Is this prompts thing basically just going to be us talking about Anne Rice's stupid vampire books every week?
We love Anne Rice.
Is that what it's about?
We love Anne Rice. All right, give me another prompt then.
No, you said you had two for me.
Yeah, they were both questions like I just fucking asked
Well,
you.
try the other one, and maybe your very specific question. They're prompts, not like deep-rooted specific childhood questions. So vampire hair, look what happened.
All right,
we
wait.
had a lot to say on vampire hair. I could do skateboards too.
Let me repurpose my other question.
All right. It doesn't even have to be a question.
No, I'm repurposing the question to a prompt.
Okay.
You really described this to me as poorly as possible.
I described it, I thought, too much when I was explaining it to you.
Yeah, well.
At one point, I was like, I'm over-explaining this. We just need to let it happen.
And we tried.
I was severely wrong.
We tried to do that. Weirdest movie or like pop culture. It might have been a book or like a cartoon or something that you were like addicted / fanatic about when you were younger, like preteen.
The first one that comes in mind is Lost in Space.
Really?
Yeah.
That awful movie version?
That's the one.
Okay.
We got that on VHS for Christmas when we moved to Brazil in like 98 probably.
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
It would have come out around then. And there was a handful of things. I was super into the mythology of the world.
Yeah.
I really liked, I can't remember his name now, but Matt LeBlanc's character.
Sure. He
was basically
armor.
Han Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he had a sword too, which was cool.
Did he?
Maybe. I may have just made that up. I remember the armor because it was like, it was like plated.
Yeah, it came up over the back of his head.
And then they had a CGI monkey pet, which for me as a crush in the sense where I was like, I don't know what this means because I'm still young, maybe going through puberty.
On Matt LeBlanc.
On Matt LeBlanc.
Yeah.
I was like, so maybe, yeah, I was like, I love Jesus because we're missionaries. I also love dicks. So, yeah, you're right.
Confused.
Jesus and dicks were a consistent theme. No, Lacey Shea Bear, which I had never watched. Party of Five. I'd never seen that show.
Yeah.
I knew who she was, though, because of Disney Adventures. I knew a lot of stuff out of Disney Adventures, but I didn't know. I had never seen it. Like, I knew growing up a lot of stuff. I knew Bone. Like I've told you that before. Jeff Smith's Bone was in Disney Adventures, like kind of an edited kid version of it.
Yeah.
And then any kind of like Family Matters, Full House. What's the other show?
Was it on TGIF?
Step by Step, the one with the guy who beat his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cody. Code Man.
Cody was his name.
That was the guy.
His name in real life was Sasha. I forget what his last name was.
Yeah. Anyway, so I knew that stuff from there, and so I knew Lacey Shea Bear was, but
Yeah, you had a crush on her.
a really bad one, and like it was I would watch the movie a lot, like especially those parts with her or whatever.
Oh, for me, I think I know what you're describing, and for me, that was Christina Ricci.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like it was that age to where I was like, she's a little older than me.
Yeah.
So, but it was that age too where like puberty's in full swing. So you're like, if I could actually meet her, like it would probably work.
The really stalkerish thoughts?
Well, not like I want to taste her blood, but like more like it would be we're the same age. I know what stuff she thinks is funny, like her character. I'm like 9 years old.
Actually,
so.
wait, you know what? Pre-Christina Ricci, it would have been Jodie Sweetin for me. Stephanie from Full House. Yeah. I had a giant. Gia? Gia was dirty. Like, that she scared me.
Gia
was Stephanie's friend.
Oh, her friend, yeah.
They didn't start out as friends. They
She
started
looked
out
like
as
Ragman.
enemies.
I mean, that's kind of everybody
What?
in the 90s. Her clothes, it always looked like she was just wearing, like she looked like a hobo. Like she looked like a constant state of...
You're thinking of Blossom, where she's got like...
No, Blossom's that way too, but wasn't Gina that way too, where she had like...
No, Gia.
Or Gia or whatever?
No, Blossom would wear a top that looked like it was made out of 6 other tops.
Yeah, I know. And she wore a hat with like a flower on it and then like a trash bag for pants.
Yeah.
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 I remember that.
And they thought they were cool.
No, so Lost in Space. But then also I thought the robot was really cool. I had the soundtrack to it. I had action figures to it too. Like I was super into that movie.
Yeah.
Which was really weird because you have this filter being in another country where, I mean, I guess you have that filter when you're 9 anyway. Like if I was in the States, I probably wouldn't have had people being like,
That movie's a travesty.
like I'm 9 years old, so.
Atrocious!
But yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind. What was the question again?
It was
Like specifically, because I had a couple things popping in my head.
like what weird
Warriors of Virtue was the other thing.
was it?
Yeah.
For me, the ones that I thought of when I thought up the prompt.
Because I'm assuming you're speaking more of stuff that's not as obvious, where it's like Star Wars. And,
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
For my first one was Ernest Scared Stupid.
That was one for me too, but then I had
was-
to ask my parents to not let me watch it for a while because it scared me.
See, I was super,
But I was like 6.
super deep into that.
The hand motion that you made it sound like you meant balls deep.
I was like, yeah, that's where I was.
That's weird.
Couldn't go further.
Lazy shaved bear crush is considerably less creepy.
No, I would when we were I'd play in the neighborhood with friends and stuff, and we would pretend we were in the Sandlot. We would always pretend like we were playing baseball games like the Sandlot kids did, and we would have characters from the movie we would pretend to be.
Did the dog in that movie, the Beast, did it not scare you to where you're like legitimately scared, but like freak you out when were you young enough or no?
No, I wasn't.
Because it did for me.
Did it?
Yeah.
We had a dog in the neighborhood we called the Beast, but it wasn't as scary because we could see the dog. We were like, oh,
It's the Beast.
that's the
It's
Beast.
just like,
This dog laying in the grass. That was my first one that popped into my head was Ernest Scared Stupid. And the second one is going to sound like I'm faking this and lying.
All right.
It was the First Wives Club.
The First Wives Club.
Correct.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a film starring Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler, and Diane Keaton.
I always mix that up with the Joy Luck Club.
Oh, that's a book.
Oh, it's a movie too.
I think they made it into a movie.
Is the First Wives Club have a black and white cover and 3 women in like black and white track suits or like business suits
Sure does.
sitting there? Yeah,
Sure
okay.
does.
I think I know what that is.
I watched the fuck out of that movie.
That's really weird, but I watched While You Were Sleeping a lot when I was really
Well, I did
young.
too, but I also at that point
I think I can understand.
I was going to it under the.
I think I
guise,
can understand you.
Maybe I was going to that film While You Were Sleeping under the guise of my giant crush on Sandra Bullock at the time.
Not me. I just thought it was just a lovely story.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, I remember. Well, no, I enjoyed it, but it's a strange. Like thinking of it now and thinking about my love of romantic comedies now,
Yeah.
at least well-made romantic comedies. Obviously, I had that like strange, not strange, but. I had that inclination in me from a younger age because I was watching the First Wives Club and I was like, this is great.
Is it a romantic comedy?
Winning comedy.
In my head, that's like a
Yeah, it's a romantic comedy.
fried green tomatoes.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's more about friendship. The women, their husbands leave them and then they end up,
Do the husbands get remarried so they're the first wives?
I think so, yeah,
Okay.
they do. Because what's her name from Sex and the City?
Sarah Jessica
Parker is in it in one of her like earlier roles. Not
This
her-
is mean, but do you think she looks like a horse?
No, I don't.
That's like a very common joke, a very common thing about her.
No, I don't think she does at all.
Yeah, I don't think she's attractive, but I don't think that she looks like a horse.
Yeah, it's just a mean thing to say about a person.
I mean, you can look like something else and it not be mean.
Sure, you can.
I mean, I'm sure I look like a fat version of something or someone.
Well, I don't.
Doesn't mean I don't look like it.
I just give me a prompt now.
What I'm trying to say is it's okay if you call someone ugly and say that they look like an animal. That's totally fine.
It sounds like you've done this before.
It's a way that I try to deal with my my past indiscretions.
Give me a prompt.
I didn't have one ready, and now I feel like I have to go like deep, where I'm like,
You think that's deep?
well, yeah, you were like, pull something out of your childhood that happened to you.
I didn't say that.
You kind of did.
Whatever. Your first prompt, vampire hair, we actually had some discussion about it.
All right,
so.
skateboards.
No. Fuck you.
No, don't say that.
That's my prompt.
Well, are you going to use it?
I was going to have you answer it.
Do you want me to now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I love skateboards.
This is fucking awful.
No, okay, no. There is things that come to mind. One is my mom told me she would buy me a skateboard from Walmart if I think I had to like clean the house. It was seriously, I'm in my head. It was for like 6 months.
Yeah.
It was probably like a week, but it was a long time. And she bought me one, and then it was from like Walmart or something. And I found at a garage sale, there was a CD-ROM of like skateboard. It was like skateboarding, not tutorials, but like I guess it kind of was. It was like how to skateboard.
It sounds very tutorial.
But it was. I would watch it on our computer. It was like basically just video clips. I would watch it on the computer and like seriously sit there and study it. I'm not even. This is before I moved to Brazil, so at the most I'm 8.
Yeah.
And studying it and it was seriously, I can remember it like because I would repeat it to myself outside trying to do an ollie, and it would seriously be like to do an ollie, like that was the first line of it, and trying to figure out how to do an ollie, and I would stand outside for what felt like hours. I don't know what it actually was.
Yeah.
And never ollie, and I never learned how. I think later when when I got older, I got back into skateboarding after Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out.
Sure.
And then I could kind of ollie, and I could do a pop shove it, but that was it. If I tried to kick flip, it was basically look like me, just like I was trying to say having a seizure, but I don't want to go down that road again. It was basically me it looks like I get hit by a car.
Sure. Like
my legs fly out, and I just kind of kick the board.
Part of the problem with Indiana is there's not really, at least where we live in Indiana, there's not a ton of places to skate.
See, that was different. I lived in Wisconsin, about the same amount of places, which is church parking lots.
Oh, yeah, and
That's
most of
about
the
it.
time they'll have signs up. They're like, if you skate here.
See, that wasn't a thing when I was younger. I never ever, because that was a part of the.
Huh?
There's not a mic on Emery. That's just a long gap of silence.
Yeah, they can kind of hear him. There's signs in Hartford City, and there's.
I know, but were they when you were a kid too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. I read Tony Hawk's autobiography a lot in 7th grade. I read it all the time. Like, I loved that book.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing where I was like, that was a thing that appealed to me where it was like,
Rebel.
yeah, they would have no skateboard signs, and the games would be that way too.
Yeah.
And you would still skateboard. So I think there's a part of me that always wanted to skate where it said not to.
I have. I mean, it's.
But then it was just like
I
never ever was faced with someone being like, "You can't skate here."
I never got arrested, or I never had a cop take my board. But I had.
Anyone ever show up and
Yeah,
say,
absolutely. Yeah.
what did they say? Just leave?
Yeah, I had cops tell me to leave.
You guys were like, okay.
No, that was basically it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and then we would wait like 40 minutes and then go skate again.
I remember there was a time where I never realized that for grinding that maybe you don't have to do it all. Well, I guess you probably would for a lot of things. You have to wax it.
It depends on what you're grinding on.
Right, but like that was something I just assumed that if you knew how to ollie and had enough momentum and balance, you could just grind on anything, which I know came from the game where you're grinding on like taxi cabs and people's faces and stuff.
Yeah, if you're gonna grind a rail, you might not have to wax it.
Was that a drug thing?
Yeah,
You're gonna grind a rail,
man. No, if you're grinding a rail like a handrail on some stairs, you might not have to wax it, but
Could you grind stuff?
Yeah,
No, you couldn't.
very, very, very like small, low to the ground things.
Well, what all could you do?
I could kickflip, land it. I'm gonna say maybe 1 out of every 50 times.
Okay.
I could get the board to
Enough
go.
to make you still want to keep trying.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It was very hard.
Could you drop in?
Like
a half pipe or something?
No.
That was one thing I never had the balls to do. That's one thing that
I tried one time though.
I think like that is something that is probably, I don't know, like how intrinsically tied up with me and whatever faults I may or may not have.
Yeah.
But that is something that even as an adult I've thought about and regretted.
Not trying to drop into a half pipe.
Always, and I never tried because I was always too scared.
I tried. I skipped school one time and went to a skate park.
Tried all day. I skipped school to try to drop in.
I tried a couple times, and then I was like, this is awful. This is fucking terrible.
Well, I think one of the things that made it worse is that I used to skate in Brazil with my friend Michael, who's another missionary kid, and he used to he would drop in, and he eventually learned how to do it, but I saw all the times that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it just looks like you fall down.
Oh, that's what it is. It's how, no, seriously, this is.
And he eventually told me, he was like, you have to lean into it and do everything your body tells you not to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I was like, I don't know that I can do that
Your
because
body-
my body's really telling me to not hit my face on the ground.
Your body is trying to tell you to right itself.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is blast through that.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why skating, I grew out of it, which I hate that phrase because did I technically grow out of it? Probably not. I realized that I didn't like it as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, I don't think that's growing out of it.
Well, no, because...
Well, that implies that, like, you got too mature for it.
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
But I think what it is with skating and even with other things, when you're trying to find the thing that you love and the thing that you know you want to do for as long as possible, you have to find whatever you are really, really comfortable at failing doing that thing.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times that I have fucking failed writing, it's a goddamn giant scroll of failures just unrolled behind me, and I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I obviously those things hurt, but I just keep failing at it because I know I'm never going to give up. And with
But
skateboarding,
what do you
like,
say by what do you mean by failing with that?
just like
Submitting something and it getting rejected,
that's part of it, yeah.
or do you mean every? Sounds so terrible, but do you mean that every moment you're not a professional writer, you are failing? Is that what you mean?
I guess that's part of it, yeah. It's weird.
Because I don't think you should look at it that way.
It's weird to think about that as a failure, but the idea of me,
Because you're writing.
yeah,
To me, if you're failing at writing, if you're not writing,
that's part of it. I've heard people talk about it that way too, but no,
which
like,
I don't mean it in like a Mary Poppins wishy-washy way, where it's like just write. That's all it takes.
no. I
didn't mean to sing that.
Well, I mean, you were talking about Mary Poppins.
Yeah, but I didn't mean in a sing-songy way. I meant in like a saccharine type.
I know, yeah.
Because where people are like, you want to be a writer? All you got to do is write. Like those kind of things, which...
Well, from a very simplistic standpoint, that is all it. You if you want to write,
that's all you have to do.
to be a professional writer,
Right.
it takes a lot more.
Right.
But like failing, for me, trying to become a writer, submitting to places for publication and then rejecting me.
Yeah.
That was a failure.
See, this segment's perfect, man. We were talking about skateboarding, and now we're talking about your failings.
Listen, kiss me. No, like the amount of places that I have submitted to and been rejected from.
Yeah.
I don't even know that I've told you guys the amount of places that I've been rejected
Do you know?
from. It's a lot.
I mean, do you know the exact number?
No, but I know it's more than 50.
Yeah.
But I've also been trying. Like I started submitting to places when I was right around 18.
Right.
And I eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to stop submitting for a while and start working on my craft. Like I actually dedicate myself to looking at things from a very like mechanical standpoint to try and teach myself things that I don't know.
Yeah.
So I failed a lot and I wrote a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah, but what do you mean when you say that, when you failed?
In my mind, I relate a lot to that quote by Ira Glass where he's talking about having taste. Like that's where you start, is you have this taste where you're like, I can look at this thing, whether it be writing, art, music, any form of art really, or anything even, like fucking buildings.
Yeah.
Like an architect.
Yeah.
You can look at something and be like, I can tell that thing is good.
Yeah.
I can tell that this is well made. And your taste is what you begin with.
Right.
And what Ira Glass is talking about is as you're going through this journey to try and become the creator, the thing that often trips a lot of the people up is that they can't get past their own taste because they're making these things that are not living up to the standards that they have. So they're setting insanely high standard for themselves because they're comparing what they want to make to the things they love.
Right.
And
to the ideal.
You have to fail a lot before you get to the point.
It's like, to me, that's always been like a sister quote to the BKV quote.
What?
To where it's like you have to write 10,000. What does he say? 10,000 pages.
No, Malcolm Gladwell says
No,
10,000 hours.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
said
that guy.
BKV said you basically have to write 10,000 words, and then after that, you're going to finally find some words that are probably going to be better than your first 10,000 failed words. Because Gladwell,
it's a take on the what's that book called?
Outliers.
Outliers, yeah.
He says if you do something for 10,000 hours, that's when you become an expert on it,
Right.
which is one of the reasons why they said the Beatles were experts, because they were playing like fucking 13 hours a day on stages in Germany every fucking day of the week.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things, like with skating, I stopped caring because after I failed so often, I was like, fuck this, and then walked away.
Right.
And with writing, I have been content to fail, knowing that it doesn't stop me, and knowing that it is going to give me something to go forward with.
That's what I want to talk about more, is you being sad.
Okay.
So let's go back into that.
All right.
So on like a daily level, or on a consistent like daily timetable,
Yeah.
do you feel that every day that you don't achieve a specific thing that it is a failure?
What do you mean?
Like
From
you say
writing?
that, if you're failing at writing at this point, what does that mean to you? Does that mean that
I didn't write today.
okay? So that's not a bad. I don't think it's an unhealthy or bad thing.
No. As far as like me being a professional writer, I don't even know. I don't know. Because failing at that,
because you started to freak me out because I was like, I haven't been thinking about lettering that way. Am I failing every day? Like, not that obviously your take on it would be. There's different takes on it, but I had never thought about it that way, to where it's like, okay, I finished Johnny Hero, and the next day I don't letter anything.
well,
is that day a wash, or is that day a failure? I guess.
I don't know. Like, you characterizing how you work with the art that you want to do, it's just completely different. And I don't even mean because you're lettering and I'm writing, just because we're different people.
Right, but that's why it's interesting to me, is because is that for you to look at it in terms of you're not accomplishing something specific as a failure? Because I can see it if, like, I've submitted my portfolio to stuff, to people who have posted on digital webbing or whatever else, and then they never email me back, and I know I didn't get that lettering gig or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought about it as a failure, but that would be something where I would be like, yeah, I didn't get that thing.
Well, it's like
just like if you were to get a rejection letter from submitting something, you also didn't get that thing. Is that something that you would look at and consider a failure?
Absolutely.
You would?
Depending on the situation. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but like Reproduct, I absolutely think I failed with Reproduct.
But I mean,
because the first 3 issues are finished.
But does that change the moment that it gets picked up?
Probably, yeah. Like right now, I feel like a failure when it comes.
That's the interesting thing to me, is
when it comes to those issues.
That the idea that since it's in a state of flux, or it's in like a state where, because I don't know.
Well, the amount
it's a very like
the amount of
college thing to talk about, but
the amount of pride that I have in that comic.
Well, I was just like, it's finished.
It's
I mean,
immeasurable.
There's 3 completely finished issues.
I have a ton of pride in it, and you and Logan put a ton of work into those issues, and you guys took time out of your schedules and worked on this book, and I have failed to get it placed somewhere. So I very like.
Do you think that in your head you have, either subconsciously or maybe consciously, I don't know how your head works, do you place a time frame?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you place a specific one for this?
No, nothing rigid.
To where it's like, if I don't get it by this point, then I failed at placing it?
It's not that rigid.
Okay.
When the time frame becomes apparent to me is when I have lost it. Is when it has passed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if I wake up one day, or if an opportunity passes by, like, it's been submitted to a couple big publishers who both expressed interest and who both said that they thought it was a great looking project and that it was very, very interesting, but the companies just weren't right for it at the time or in general.
Yeah.
After those 2 rejections, which is nothing, like 2 rejections, that's fucking nothing. It's just such a tiny blip.
Yeah.
But the amount of pride that I have and the amount of quality that I think is within the book, for it to not be currently published, makes me feel like a failure, and makes me feel like I failed the project, which is a subjective thing. But it's also something that doesn't
Well, it's
destroy
interesting.
me. Like
That's what I was going to ask you. Does it then put you in a place where it pushes you and motivates you, or are you just like, oh, another failure and a long line of failures, and like try to pick yourself up and dust yourself off, or is it like we haven't gotten it there yet, and either I need to do something differently or I need to?
The answer to that is yes.
All of those things,
Everything you said.
Oh, okay.
Because within a day, I will feel completely like a complete failure, and then like 10 minutes later, I'll be like, like obviously I'm not. It's always been a struggle for me, and I've seen other writers and other creators talk about it. Like I was just listening to interviews with Andre Dubus III, and that's how I found out to pronounce his last name the correct way, like that.
Oh, really?
Because I thought it was Dubus, and it's not. He quotes people a lot, like too much. I was like, all right, man, just maybe talk to me.
Maybe you quote yourself.
Yeah, he was talking about I forget who it was. It was not Edna St. Vincent Millay, but I really like saying her name. What was her name? Ugh. The quote was
Hermione Granger.
It was Hermione. The quote was that writers have to have a certain level of stupidity, and that stupidity is characterized by the willingness to stare at a blank page, which I have done. And I don't say it to be proud, but there are days where I absolutely did fail, where I absolutely wrote nothing, and I stared at a blank page and got pissed off and like got up and went about whatever I was doing to try and fucking level myself. And the amount of times that I'm willing to do that, based on like out of everything else that I've ever done in my life, even the concept or idea of failure when it comes to writing is already different than the rest of the things I've done, because even though I would get rejection letters from magazines and websites and all kinds of places, I fucking was just like, all right, put it in the drawer. I'll write the next shitty short story.
Did that stuff hurt you early on? Like rejection?
I don't think it did. And the only reason I think it didn't is because as I started writing seriously with the idea towards getting published, I was already reading and listening to other people talk about rejection and how if you wanted to be a writer, the very first thing you needed was thick skin. So from going forward from there, I almost saw it as like a badge where I was like, fuck yeah, I got rejected. Let's go. Like, let's move on. But also, I think another thing is, because I'm hard on myself and because I'm as critical of my stuff as I am, the idea of someone rejecting me, I was like, yeah, I get it. Not because I think I'm awful, but because I know my work's not perfect. It never will be perfect. I know it needs improvement.
Well, and it has to fit what they're looking for. Maybe it's not that it's not good enough, but it's not.
Well, also
what they need or what they're looking for or whatever else.
Just like this tiny little very simple thing. I remember the second that I fucking found out that I had been using the incorrect version of its. Like, I was writing stories
like
where,
apostrophe S.
Yeah, I wasn't using the proper form of its, and those were stories that I had been submitting.
Is one always wrong?
Yes. Depending on how you use it.
Okay, so no.
No, I mean, like...
Well, you had me confused for a second. I was like, what?
No,
okay.
Yeah, like it's apostrophe S means it is. It's ITS means it's a possessive.
Okay.
But I was submitting stories with that improper version of its within the story.
Right.
So...
Panic.
I mean, potentially editors would be like, oh, look at this fucker. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. Or potentially they were like, this story's a giant muddled mess. None of the characters know who they are. Like,
It's is the smallest problem in this story.
This is a fucking pebble. But like all of those failures, they were just like a fucking step towards me being the failure that I am today.
Well, do you think that there's this is a really this is going to sound like such a dark, depressing question.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is what we're talking about, because this is my okay. So to bring it into a thing where it's me relating to it as well, so it doesn't just sound like I'm being like, how long until you buy a gun? But But like for me, my biggest fear in life right now is that 10 years from now, I'll turn to Amanda and be like, remember that time those people published that book I lettered? And like that will be the blip where it was like, I lucked out because I was in the right place at the right time, and Fred Chow knew I lettered and he needed a letterer, and that was it.
I guess it depends on if you think about it like, if you think about it from the standpoint as, in that hypothetical situation, in that in the 10 years, in that span of 10 years, are you still lettering anything?
Right. Well, that was going to be my question to you. So like what do you think that there will hit a wall to where if you haven't hit the point to where you're writing professionally, you're like, you'd stop? Or do you think it is something to where you do it until you die, whether you make it or not?
Right now, I think that I'm going to die trying.
Okay. Well, I don't mean rate your odds.
No.
I mean, like, do you think that there is, not that you've necessarily set a goal, but
no, I don't mean.
Do you think you could last until you die in terms of?
When I said that, I don't mean that I'm going to die trying, meaning I'm never going to succeed. But if I have to die trying, I guess, like, the way I've thought about it up to this point is if I was going to quit, I would have. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't know. It depends, because I've read writers talk about it like there's no age that you have to succeed by. There's no fucking timeline.
Well, society puts that, even if it's not thought, maybe necessarily spoken or said.
Yeah.
I know that, at least for us, I know that we draw that line.
We
to
do.
Where we're like,
also, one thing that I fucking hate that I still ever think about is that people know I want to be a writer. And for them to see me not being a writer translates to failure. And I don't give a fuck. Like, if somebody looks at me and is like, Austin's a failure, first of all, fuck you.
Okay, yeah.
But then, like, second of all, me defining what failure means to me is...
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't care about that stuff
It's
either.
the first step to figuring that out. But also, like, I've seen writers be like, you know what, I wrote 4 books. And then I wrote a 5th one and it got published. And the first 4 are shit.
Yeah.
And, like, if that's what I had to do, oh, okay, that's what I have to do. I don't know. Like, it could turn out that way. Like, Stephen King wrote it was like he wrote 4 books before 1 got published. And those 4 books that ended up being published, but
that's the thing
they
that
weren't
sucks
the first ones.
About all that stuff, is because then we try to figure out, and by we I mean me and you and potentially people that are listening.
Yeah.
Try to figure out, okay, what was King doing and how old was he?
Yeah, I do that shit too.
Because it's like, yeah, that's an inspiring thing, but my first thought is, well, how old was he when the 5th one got published? Oh, 28, great.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, I hate that I do that shit too, man, but I do. That's why when I found out Veronica Roth, the author who wrote Divergent's 24, and she met her literary agent in Muncie, Indiana, I was like, oh, fuck! It's a bad day. But then I was like, whatever. Like, it's another one of those like college things to say, but like my journey to wherever I'm going to end up is what it has been. And I made decisions that altered it.
That's not a college thing to say, because I have a variation on that, and mine comes from a spiritual place. Yeah. And you being basically just a pawn for the devil that's going to burn in hell, doesn't believe in God.
Godless pagan.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same sentiment. Like, I struggle with, and I joke about it a lot because I think it pisses me off, but so I think I try to joke about it to either make myself feel better or to not.
You think? That's exactly what we do.
Well,
we 100% do that.
Or to not dwell on it. The fact that I have debt and wasted money going to college. Like, and that's something that, like, if I ever have kids, it's going to be really hard for me to be like, you need to go to college. Because my gut instinct, I don't even know why Emery's glaring at me.
I do.
Why?
Because Emery has a fucking master's degree.
Oh, yeah.
He's working on his PhD currently.
Well, it's going to be tough for me because, like, lettering and the stuff that I want to do now has nothing to do with TCOM. And I wasted 4.5 years of trying to get this degree that now means nothing. I started off at the call center when I was in college, and I worked full-time, and I got promoted at the call center. It had nothing to do with my degree.
Yeah.
So that's something that I have a tough time with that. But it's one of those things where I think about, okay, I don't know that I would have landed where I am now if I didn't go through that crap.
Potentially not.
So
that's what I think about too. Like, without the like creepy God overtones.
Thanks, man.
No, like the failures that I had and the terrible decisions that I made.
Yeah.
And through all that, like, as I was growing up, my parents always told me, like, do what you love and try and do what you love as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And when I took that advice and fucking basically just like lost my mind and decided to not go to college, because going to college could have potentially guaranteed me a better job than I have now, but I also knew that I hated it and it was going to feel like a waste of time to me. And my parents were always telling me, like, you should maybe go to college.
I guess I should clarify that whole stance. Like, I think it just depends on what you're doing. If you have a very
up to the person, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a very clear focus on what you want to do, like Amanda had a job lined up and she had to wait to graduate so that she could have it.
Yeah.
So for her, that job required a degree.
Amanda's always been a lot smarter than us.
Much smarter. But also that's what I'm saying, that career path and that track needed a degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, no. And my frustration more than anything with all that stuff is the way that we do it. And I never get like
the American education
political,
system.
like, yeah, the way that we do it in America.
But like the idea that like at 18, like who knows if I'm trying to think of a weird outlandish thing. I don't even know like what I'm going to eat that day with what money if I have a job, if I went.
Whatever, man. At 18, you were choosing not to eat so you could buy the Umbrella Academy.
That's true. But like that, how can I trust myself? How can society or anyone trust me to make a decision
it's weird.
That's going to basically set the tone for
the rest of your life?
The rest of my life. That's so dumb.
It's weird because I think there are 18-year-olds who are at that place.
There are, but not everybody. And I guess it's just as stupid to try to be like, well, then it should be 20. I mean, everybody's going to be in a different spot.
Oddly,
but I guess having that pressure of like, and I go into TCOM because I'm like, I love movies.
Purple.
And so I'm there with a bunch of other like fat losers who love movies at Ball State, and it's just like, cool. What are we going to do now? We live in a cornfield.
Yeah.
In Indiana. What movie am I going to make?
Yeah, like making film.
And I realized that halfway through, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to be like every other person in my class at Mississinawa who didn't finish college.
Well, see,
so I guess I'll finish it out.
Like, I didn't like the concept that I had to go to college.
Yeah.
And I've always been a terrible person to deal with authority.
To be fair, our parents also they also didn't know about the fact that for our generation, we're going to have jobs.
Well, no, to them, when we were the age where before 9/11 and before a lot of that shit happened and all the fallout, like the idea that we had to go to college because that was going to be the way to guarantee that we had a better life.
Yeah.
To our parents, like neither of my parents went to college. No one in my immediate family has gone to college. They might have taken classes, but they've never graduated, and I never did. And most of the education that I've gotten post high school has been because it's me searching and trying to find whatever I can. But like when I wondered about like happiness and how I was gonna be happy, like when I figured out that college wasn't it was hard because I fucked some stuff up in my life and made decisions and didn't do things that if I had done them at the time, things could have gone differently. But I feel like, as weird as it is to say, like, this is the happiest I've ever been. Like, it sounds dorky and
well, no,
but like everything that we have and that we've done and are continuing to do, like we didn't need college for any of that stuff, which doesn't mean that it's wrong or bad.
No.
In our situation, things turned out the way they did for who knows what reason, because, you know, here we are talking about dicks. But, like, I saw Tyler, the Creator, talking about it, which is a weird place to find this. Like, he was talking about, because that dude's what, like 20?
Maybe.
19? Yeah.
And he's been around for a couple years at least.
And he's got like albums.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of the rap community at this point. And I don't know what talk show it was on. He was talking about graduating high school and how his friends are in college right now because their parents wanted them to go to college and they hate what they're doing. Yeah, it was Arsenio. And they're basically digging this giant hole of debt for themselves to then pay as they're unhappy. And that's a bleak picture to paint, and it's obviously not like that for anyone and everyone who goes to college. But like, if you feel like college is wrong, then I mean, don't do it. Like, you have to find some way to be okay, though. You have to make life work.
And, and it's a strange thing too, because now, like, I crave the idea of going to school for graphic design.
Yeah,
because I buy graphic design books and I read articles and like bookmark stuff and watch tutorials, because that's the stuff that now I'm like, I really want to learn how to do that, because I know that will be useful. That will be something that I can use.
Yeah.
Which is ironic, because I've got a bachelor's degree and debt. And so the idea now of being like, all right, well, let's get some more debt going.
I think the difference there
is a horrible idea.
Like when you went into college as
a horrible sounding idea,
an 18-year-old, with the idea that you loved movies, which hasn't changed and has probably deepened since then.
Well, and I said that like a dickhead. I did want to make movies.
Well, no, see, that's the thing.
But when I realized, like, okay, Amanda will move with me to California, but I don't really want to move out there and try to make movies.
Well, that's the thing, though.
That didn't appeal to me at that point.
I think the difference is loving movies and loving making movies is two very different things.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to clarify. I did have that love.
Yeah,
but then, and that's why my whole frustration with the way the model works is halfway through, I was like, you know what? The more that I've seen of the process, and the more that I've done it, and the more that I've learned, the more I've realized that ultimately I'm changing my mind. Basically, I don't want to do that, like you were with skateboarding.
Yeah,
and
well, I was
great. 2 years wasted.
I went past that point where I didn't enjoy the failures anymore.
Right.
And enjoying is a strange word, because the failures are not enjoyable almost always. But
the pushing past it was no longer a...
Well, it's like you with lettering or design.
Yeah.
Like knowing that you enjoy doing that hands-on thing as opposed to just the concept of it, I think is a big deal. Because that right there is the fucking, like, that's the stone that builds the wall. Mm-hmm. You love doing the thing, so then learning about everything around that thing is going to make it a lot easier to fail at. Yeah, a lot easier to get over these hurdles. Like when I wrote some just fucking awful short stories, at the time I was writing them, I was having a fucking blast. They meant something to me. I was convinced that what I was writing was something that was going to turn into a big part of my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe it did. Most of the time it didn't. But like, once I got past it and once I had finished whatever I was doing or put it aside, it still meant something to me, and it didn't feel like a failure, even though I knew it was a failure, or I knew I had to fix something, or the failures never feel as bad as they could with something that you love. Right. And that's why skateboarding moved out of my life, as I was like, man, fuck this. I'm all bloody. My jeans have holes in them. And then I was like, what if Luke Skywalker fought 1,700 stormtroopers? Page 1. Fast forward, here we are today.
And that has been the first installment of Prompts and Circumstance.
You can look forward to more. Maybe I'll get the rules better next time. Although I think it went pretty fucking well this time.
Well, see, that's what I figured. Like, what was the thing I kept saying? Tangents with structure.
Sure.
I did say that.
You did say that, yes. I'm not going to take that away from you.
Vampire hair.
Structure.
Have you ever been alone in the woods and you needed a hatchet, but also you kind of wanted to read Action Comics?
Yes.
That's happened to me, only it was kind of a similar situation. I was in the desert, and I needed Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yes.
Luckily, DCBS was there for me. Discount comic book service. You can find them on dcbservice.com.
Yes.
Online. They will throw out parachutes of supplies and comics, little like parcels like in Lost where they drop food onto the island. Is that your line?
No.
Okay. And get you with your comic book fixins.
They will.
DCBservice.com. You can get so much awesome stuff on there for discounted prices.
A lot of really good prices.
Anything you can think of. If you want to buy that gross Catwoman issue, they got it.
That is there.
If you want to read it, they're going to charge you for it, but they'll charge you like half off for it.
They will give you a really good deal on it. You can also follow them on Twitter.
DCB Service, yeah.
DCB Service is their Twitter handle.
If you're in the Fort Wayne, Indiana area, stop by their store. We've already told some hilarious stories about stopping in there. Like they'll punch you if you want them to.
We've said a lot of really funny
They'll high
things.
five. Seriously, if you go in there, we'll play it straight this time. They'll have a conversation with you and talk to you.
They'll talk to you. They'll be nice. They'll sell you some comics. And then right after you leave, you can go to the Chinese place that's next door.
Yeah, it's great food.
We almost always go there.
We always do.
Go to DCBS.
Go to DCBService.com and get some comics.